or any of the following holidays, and Columbus Day is in there. Martin Luther King Day, birthday, Lincoln's and Washington's birthday, Columbus Day, Veterans Day. And Martin Luther King's birthday, Washington's birthday, Lincoln's birthday, and Veterans Day, at least 1 hour of the school program must be devoted to a patriotic observance of the day. And then it goes down to Constitution Day, is the one I was thinking of, Noel. And we've got opportunities to learn about the principles of Americanism. So,
Mr. Chair,
My understanding is the
I
same.
think this is going to take a half an hour.
well,
right now,
We need
is
to
there any
know-
other discussion? If we say it's a holiday, that the teachers would get that day off. Is there any discussion?
I'm wondering why we would do that, because Mesabi Tribune is two-thirds, the cost is two-thirds more than Hometown Focus for it to be our publication. 50 cents versus $1.50 per column inch.
Oh, I know one thing, Paulie, because I've studied this over the years. The column inches are different between the two papers, so that does make a difference in it. That's all I can remember on it.
And I do think
Permit.
there is some benefit to going with almost daily newspaper as opposed to a weekly publication.
Is there any other discussion? With no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
I
Opposed?
No,
Who's?
no.
Oh, so we have a 6-2 with Director Albert Dahl and Polly Sorkin voting no. Consider authorizing business manager and superintendent to make electronic fund transfers.
So moved.
Support.
And I'm sorry, who?
I
Polly.
moved.
Okay,
Polly made the motion, I supported.
thank you. Any discussion? Any discussion? No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Consider authorizing the business manager to use current signature plate until the new plate is secured if necessary.
So moved.
A motion by Polly, support by
Patty?
Thank you. Any discussion? Any discussion? No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Consider authorizing school board members to attend necessary in-state meetings. Is there a motion?
So moved. Go ahead, Bill. Bill.
Go ahead, Paul, you can have it. I'll support it.
Motion by Polly, support by Bill. Is there any discussion?
Is this in reference to the, like, MSBA, that type of?
Yeah, the big thing is in-state, so.
Okay.
So who deems whether it's necessary or not?
I definitely think the MSBA one is valuable.
Well, I'm not arguing,
Yeah.
but it just, I don't know.
I've
It's,
never had that question answered or asked, so, I mean, if somebody wants to go to something, I know that Ellers has a function one on finance that I've attended years back, but go ahead, Noel.
I can answer that, Director Reardon. If you authorize and say yes on this point, when you turn in expense sheets for like mileage for MSBA, I know you've already approved it, and so then I approve it internally, and then it goes through the business office. That's how it works when we process your mileage request in state. If it's out of state, then I say it has to go to the full board for approval.
And MSB has multiple meetings throughout the year.
Yeah.
They, not just for officers and new board members. They have multiple things that are all good. That's why they exist for, board member education, so.
Okay, so is there any other discussion? Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Consider authorizing superintendent to approve in-state travel requirements for employees during the school year. Do I have a motion?
Support.
Tom
Yuhud.
and John Yuhan on the second. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? With no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Consider authorizing the superintendent to employ additional instructional, library, maintenance, and clerical assistants as shall become necessary. Is there a motion?
Support.
Motion by Director Tamero, second by Director Addy. Is there any discussion?
My question would be, would these additional employees be short-term, temporary, or could some be permanent? Or are these just like when we're in a pinch, or substitutes, or how short-term or temporary are these positions?
The answer to that is that most of the ones that would come to my desk would be short-term, temporary. Most of the permanent full-time positions, we run through the Personnel Committee first. The only exception to that might be paraprofessionals when we need a para right now because a new kid has moved to the area. But for the most part, if I'm approving something, it's of a shorter term duration. Longer term, we run them through the Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Noel. Any other discussion? With no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Consider resolution directing the administration to make recommendations for reduction in programs and positions and reasons therefore. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll support.
Motion by Director Sorkin, second by Director Addy.
That's your roll call there, Tim.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
I just question, I mean, what amount are we talking?
For reductions, you mean?
Yeah.
I think it just means in general that he makes those recommendations when it comes time. It's not like pertaining to this school year or any, you know what I mean? It's not like,
The boilerplate that you do every year so that
it's just a general,
make recommendations for the board.
And there are dates by which we have to give notices to
Right.
teachers if we don't intend to call them back. It's more perfunctory and routine,
it's just general right now.
and they are recommendations.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimous.
There's a
It's a
roll call.
yeah, it's roll.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Roll call vote, Director Lotiger,
Yes.
Director Addy,
Yes.
Director Yuhan,
Yes.
Director Gilbert,
Yes.
Director Dahl,
Yes.
Director Sorkin,
Yes.
Director Tamero. Director Reardon signifies yes, carried unanimously. Nicole, now do you want to be, I forgot to ask, Colbert, Dahl, or,
Whatever you feel comfortable with, I will answer to both.
well, you don't want to say that to me. Okay, thank you. Consider resolution naming Dr. Noel Schmidt as the identified official with authority to Iowa and for the Rock Ridge Schools. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Support.
Hey, Brandy.
We have a Director Addy, and I'm sorry, Brandy, John's got a bigger voice.
Right, that's all right.
Is there any discussion? Any discussion? With no further discussion, all those in favor?
Roll call.
Oops, another roll call. Roll call, Director Yuhan.
Yes.
Director Sorberg.
Yes.
Director Lotiger.
Yes.
Director Addy.
Yes.
Director Dahl.
Yes.
Director Tamero.
Yes.
Director Sorkin.
Yes.
Director Reardon. Passes unanimously. Thank you, sir. Mr. Vice Chair, keeping me on line here. Consider designating Dr. Noel Schmidt as responsible authority under the Minnesota Data Practices Act and open meeting law.
I'll make the motion.
Or,
We have a by Director Lotiger, support by Director
Gilbert.
Gilbert. there any discussion?
Well, have you, or will you, or are you going to designate a designee as you can? Although you will be the responsible authority?
A designee for which?
Well, you can designate a designee to actually carry out these data practice, these.
Yes, on this particular one, probably not.
Okay.
We have other areas where I do have some designees. There's a whole list of them. We have safety individuals, human rights officers, for example, but on this one, probably not.
Okay. So you would be the one-man band. And then along with that the responsible authorities, responsibilities, there's some policies that come with it. And I'm not sure we have those policies in our district that we need to develop about requesting. I know we got some policies by MSBA, but there are other procedures maybe and policies that maybe we'll talk separately about those two.
Separately, as they come up, there's no Minnesota law that's requiring you to adopt additional ones
There are
other than the ones that you have. However,
procedures, not necessarily.
yes, policies, there's procedures.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. So we need to develop those. Maybe you put that on your list of to-do lists.
I will put it on my to-do list.
Okay, your honey-do list?
Ooh, I don't know about that. So we have a motion by Brandy, seconded by Matt. Is there any other discussion? Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Committee memberships. Everyone has in front of you a blank sheet. And Stacy also gave one with the people that are currently on that. You could give that to me.
Can I make a recommendation?
Yes.
I'm wondering, just with the process of negotiations, if I could make a recommendation that we continue with those same individuals for negotiations.
I would support that recommendation.
Can I do that in the form of a motion, or do I need to?
The chair appoints the committees, so.
Okay.
Right now, we're in the middle, the closing end of it, and so we talked, Bill and I and Tom, and it would not serve a greater good for us to start changing the name at this side, but you're correct.
So with that recommendation of keeping the negotiations committee the same, just for consistency and everything that has gone on during negotiations, I just want to make a recommendation again that we continue to have updates, closed session updates about how that's going, so that everybody feels a part and, is up to speed on hot topics and things like that.
Completely agree, Brandy, and I'd like to have an update at a minimum on a monthly basis.
Yeah,
I don't think we've had one since November again.
yeah.
And not just an update, I would say a working, contributory session with budget numbers. We need to understand budget numbers. We, make recommendations to the negotiation committee. And so I think they need to be much deeper and much more detailed. Negotiations committee, just one more thing. So it just says negotiations admin, but there have been multiple negotiation committees. There was an AFSCME one that was different than the.
Correct.
Okay, so I don't know, and we need to split those out again and.
We can add a line on there.
Right. So admin, maybe it'd be all administrators and or non-contract people. Would that be the same as the admin committee? So I see at least 3 committees, maybe at 2 for sure, for negotiations. So
I will take that under consideration. I think that, yeah.
Okay.
Because there was, Tom, were you on AFSCME?
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
and then who else?
Stacy, Murray, and Tom.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have no problem keeping the same committees
Yeah.
through this system. And one more thing, we keep getting, there keeps being on board book, I think there just was one this morning, Activities Committee. I don't know, we never had an Activities Committee, but now we have an Activities Committee meeting, and it's not on this list, so I think we need to clarify.
I think I think it's always been athletic/activities.
Okay, so that's athletic.
Yeah. We've always had that one.
Okay, good clarification.
I would just suggest too, when we request committee assignments, I think it'd be good if we ranked them so you can see,
Put down 1, 2, 3.
where you want to be, and then you
Right.
try and accommodate as best you can.
Yes,
Nicole.
please do that.
So just look down the list and see which ones you're interested in, and then just, should we put a deadline or try and do it by the next meeting? Everybody email you our interests?
If you can get it to me.
By rank.
If you can get it to me before the next meeting, I could, you could get it to me like on the 19th or 20th,
Okay.
I could have it for our next meeting.
Okay.
I
And
do,
if we don't get it done, we know that it's in a process. Yes,
some of these don't have anybody serving. I'm just curious about, like, the safety committee, rec board, family service. Are these active committees or?
I think the rec board one was, former director 40
Yep.
was on that, and I think that likely will go away with the rec board. Not knowing that, but there's discussion.
And the Family Services Collaborative, that's not a committee, but that's just a placeholder, a representative from our school district, so that's one person. Not really.
He was on there, somebody before, I don't know.
I was at one point in time. And then I
Oh, Murray's on this list, though. Never mind.
and I think last year, when I went off the Family Services Collaborative, what's her name? The former principal was on there.
Danette, see,
Danette was the one person, because then there were two of us once we became Rock Ridge. And so maybe one of the other principals or something would take that, unless a board member wants to be that representative.
All right.
under consideration.
And staff development, we never had one meeting. I don't even know about a board member on staff development, which there probably should be, but that was non-existent last year. And I have one more comment. Am I out of committee jail yet?
That question was posed at the beginning of the meeting, and
What, at the beginning of the meeting?
No, before the meeting, I just asked, I just asked him before the meeting.
passing these out, and he asked that question.
Well, now we're asking it in public, so
And now
let's,
you're asking in public,
Yes.
and I don't have that answer. But I will find it out, and
isn't that a board decision?
it's a board decision, but I'll find out for the board if it's for a year, if it's the board at any time they want to retract that can do it by a vote. I will find all that out for the next meeting.
Who are you going to find that out from?
I will talk to MSBA.
MSBA. I think it's a board decision no matter what MSBA says. So anyway, I just wanted to ask that question.
So noted, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I can't make a motion to let Polly back into committees or?
You
Is that
can.
allowed, or?
certainly can, you're a
They can.
director here.
Okay, well, I would move that Polly is allowed back on the committees for the new school year, or not school year, but new year.
Is there a second to the motion? Is there a second?
I will second that.
Is there any discussion?
I have no problems with that, but I'd like to get more information before I voted for that.
I would prefer, that's me, same thing, I'd like to find out what,
And what kind of information was that? Would that be? From MSBA, like Tim said?
More-
what did the resolution say?
Right.
What did the resolution?
It's at such time when the board decides. to reinstate. That's what it said.
Yes, I would like to see that resolution.
You voted for it, but.
Oh, I know. I just didn't know this question would come up, or I would have read it before I came to this meeting.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Bell, second by Director Sorkin, to put Director Sorkin back in the committee role. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
We will find out, and that goes with Adal and Sorkin. Yes. And 6 others, 6 no. I will find this out, and I will bring it back at the next board meeting.
Sounds good, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Yes. Oh, geez, we're done.
Motion to adjourn organizational meeting.
Matt and Brandy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. I'd like to call to order the regular school board meeting, January 10th, 2022. Approval of the regular board meeting.
Could we say the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
We want to do the Pledge of Allegiance again? Yes.
We did it already.
We already did it.
You did it?
You.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, nope, not a problem.
I apologize.
Nope, no biggie.
Okay.
We have one addition, do we not, to the agenda? Oh, well,
Yes, we do have we're asking that we have a student issue that we would like to add to the agenda, however, it's a closed session item. So we would like the board to consider adding this item at the end of the school.
I'll move.
we have a motion by Director Addy, support by Director Lotiger.
That would be after item 13.
15,
Would we go into closed session first and then come out? And,
no, we go into closed session and then come back out and have no other business except to adjourn the meeting. Is the way it should be done.
so we're going to pass, let's see. What are we adding again?
We're adding a closed session.
And no,
14.2, right? We're gonna have that with you.
I'm looking at this agenda, and this agenda says,
Come back, do meeting announcements, and adjourn.
okay, see, they have adjournment at 15. So we'll come back and do the adjournment after the closed session, so.
14.2.
14-2.
okay, and then we will not take any action after the closed meeting? I'm just,
We will be asking the board to take action. Or to consider taking action.
and we would have to do that, come back out of closed meting and then take that action?
Correct.
Decide?
If the board,
If we decide.
if we decide to do it, we would do it as 14.3. If there's
At this,
no action taken, all we will do is come back and adjourn the meeting
at this point, we're just adding a closed session, right?
With possible action.
with possible action.
What kind of action? We have to designate why we're going into closed session. We have to designate why we're going into closed session.
I would assume disciplinary,
Well, we have to.
if we're going into,
Not,
We
it's
have-
personal, it's data privacy, all we have to do is,
Noel, clarify, we have to give the reason that we're going into closed session.
I think we've talked about this before,
yes,
and I believe it was said that we do not have to.
Okay?
I believe that's what
Okay.
Attorney had.
give us the description for why we're going into closed session.
We are going into closed session. We need to have a closed session with you. We are recommending we go into one to discuss a student issue. That is not something we can talk about publicly.
Okay, that's,
you.
that's different than just a closed session. We have to get by. And then as far as deletions, I'm wondering if we should not delete 12.1 and 13 about the mandatory vaccine for employees, because the Supreme Court is still in deliberation whether that whole thing is legal or valid or not. They may reverse it, they may put an injunction on it, and so I think it's premature to go ahead and pass policies, two of them in fact, that the Supreme Court might invalidate. And it's like a wait and see. What do we have to lose if we don't? Because
I agree with you. I agree wholeheartedly. They just heard those arguments Thursday or Friday.
last Friday.
Yeah.
So that would be my motion to delete 12.1 and 13.2. Till such time.
Delete or
appropriate.
delete the adoption, and Jeff Perry can give us any updates on it? Or you want to just delete?
I think,
We can have information. I would love,
I feel like we need some discussion on it. I mean, I don't think we should totally wipe it out. Right now, I think that we should have some discussion on it and find out what we need to do legally before we,
We'll just delete considering adoption of the policy and hear from Jeff at that time, and
yeah, that would be my,
well, but if we leave it on there, we don't have to approve or not, approve it or not approve it, do we? I mean, we can just have a discussion about it. It says consider approval.
Adoption, yeah.
and
Consider
What
adoption
number?
for 12.1.
we will delete consider adoption of this policy and have him walk us through it, because most of us don't know what the policy means based on ramifications that it has.
and that would be.
Okay, that'd be 12.1, right? Consider, so we're just gonna look into this policy for discussion purposes only.
And have discussion of policy
Okay.
491. Is that fine with you, Director Sorkin?
Yes, and,
Okay.
yeah, for the other one too.
And 13.3, the same thing.
Yeah, 13.2.
13-2.
13.2, excuse me.
All right, that's fine, great.
Okay. So now, looking for a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda as amended.
And I would support.
Motion by Addie, second by
Yvonne.
Director Yuhan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried unanimously. Bye-bye. Recognition of visitors and visitors' input. At this time, I have no one that has directly asked for visitor input at this time. So we will move on to consent agenda. And we have a motion for the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion.
A motion by Director Yuhan. Support by Director Tamro. Is there any discussion?
Yes, we could just take care of my questions, and then I would vote for the consent agenda, if you want to take it that way.
That would be fine.
So I guess I always have the ongoing question of when we have resignations, we need to decide at some point if these jobs should be posted and advertised and refilled, or if they're going away, or if we're not going to fill them. And so that's always my concern when we have any resignations. Tonight, we have 3 of them. Are we intending to replace a casual bus driver, and maintenance grounds driver, and a Girl Scout secretary? Because if that's the case, we have to take action on that, don't we? Or are we shifting people around? In some instances, it looks like you're recommending a shift too on number 9.9. I wasn't at the last meeting, but Stacy Auni was designated curriculum instruction and integration position. Now she's resigning, and that's very confusing to me. What's happening there? And then we got related to that maybe is we got a job description for Possible dean of students. I'd just like to know what the scenarios are here.
I can answer some of those, all those questions to the board. First one, as to the job description, that is we have an interim dean in Virginia High School. There is also a dean in Evelyn, Gilbert, Franklin, split between, and the high school. There's really two deans. One of them has the interim dean title. The other one is simply a dean and has worked in that role for several years under the old Evelyn Gilbert contract. So we talked to the teacher union leadership about a job description for a dean because we didn't have one under the new Rockridge School District. And so we've taken all the job descriptions through the committee work, then they all came to the school board. You passed all of them except this is a new job description. So this one, in talking to the teachers union, has seen it. They said they're okay with it. You're the decision makers, though. It went through the personnel committee, I believe. They were okay with it, so now we're taking it to you because we do have someone in the dean role. You just should have a job description for that position. So that's what that particular one is all about. The other positions, the resignations, etc. Generally speaking, if someone is resigning, we do post for that position. We talk to the school board and the personnel committee, first starting with the personnel committee, if there are additions or if there's significant switches or changes. Most of them do not involve significant changes or switches, and so then we simply repost the position because you have authorized me to do that. And so then we'll post the position. As to why certain people resign, we do not put that in the board notes or in the minutes because frankly, we don't know why everyone is resigning. We are simply telling you they are wishing to resign and asking you to resign. Officially, you do need to accept those because that could make a difference on their retirement, etc., or some other thing that they are doing. So that's what happens with the resignations.
So is it our intention to then replace the casual bus driver, the buildings custodian, maintenance grounds driver, and the secretary at Roosevelt?
Yes.
So we are posting and advertising for those to be refilled.
Not the secretary at Roosevelt, because she is planning on working the rest of the school year. There's no reason to post that one right now.
Okay, and then what's the one with the curriculum instruction and integration position? If she resigns, who do we have in there? Do we not have to replace that?
She did resign.
Well, okay, so are we replacing that too?
As of this minute, I'm recommending we just hold and just wait because we're coming into the budget cycle. I mean, situations change when people come and go. This is one of them. And so I'm going to recommend we just hold on that. We've got all the classes covered right now because we need to consider the wider budget, and now we'll be getting into the 22-23 budget.
Resigned, then what is her job going to be?
I don't know. She's resigning. So she's leaving us, and so then we're going to move another teacher.
Okay.
He's teaching online courses. That course is ended, so he's going to move directly in and pick up her classes.
Yeah, I saw that move from the last meeting. Yeah, okay.
Okay, everybody have your questions answered? Any other discussion? With no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you to all those who are donating.
Yes. Now we are on construction, Virginia campus demolition update, presentation and consideration. Oh, you want to get it?
Yeah, there we go.
okay to take my mask off?
Yes, I'm fine.
You had it up the whole time.
What number? No,
Oh, I was on green.
10,
10?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's down at the bottom of the page.
Oh, I see it. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you for letting us speak. I'm Morgan Siopa. I'm the Assistant Project Engineer with Kraus Anderson, and we're just going to go over a few things today. The bid opening results for the Virginia campus demolition and abatement, and then kind of a little bit of a budget update on the whole campus demolition as well. Okay, so a couple of things we'll be going over today. The first is the bidding process, where we're at today with this particular bidding process. Next, we'll go over the bids for the scopes that were bid on. Then we'll go over the budget comparison, schedule, and then where we're at for the overall campus demolition. Right now, we're at the bid award stage. We have gone through the 3 stages before that. We had our bid opening here in this building where you're sitting, and now we're looking to maybe award those bidders. First, we'll go over the demolition package. The low bidder was Redeveloping Contracting. Their bid came in at $2,295,000. Following them was and then after that was Dorn Associates. We did have one bidder, Carl Belander and Sons. Their number is a little high because they misinterpreted the site restoration. So if you're wondering where that number is at, that's why. Next, for the abatement package, the low bidder was Dorn Associates, but there were some bid irregularities that we had to take a look at, consider for our recommendation. They're listed below. On the bid bond that they submitted, they used their non-union corporation name, which is a Dorn Associates Incorporated name. The union corporation name is River Environmental. That's their sister company. They had an incomplete bid form. We had a breakout, as you can see on the other 3 bids here. We would break out the phase 1 and phase 2 just to know where we're at for each of those phases as far as numbers, so we can have an idea where our money's going.
Can you explain the phases to that?
Yeah, so the first phase will be for the Roosevelt Elementary School, that portion, and the second phase will be the high school portion. So we are
There's a
recommending.
year in between those, correct?
Yep, so the Roosevelt Elementary, that would be this summer, with the high school following in 2023. Our recommendation would be Mavo Systems. I guess there's a few more things there. Dorn Associates is an out-of-state contractor as well. They're in Michigan. They weren't licensed in Minnesota at the time their bid was submitted, and they did not attend any pre-bid walkthroughs. So that may turn into additional costs because maybe they don't know the project as well as some of these other contractors do on the pre-bid walkthroughs. So that ultimately leads me to recommend Mavo Systems. They were also your abatement contractor on the Evelyn Junior High School. They did a great job and they stayed in budget. We're very responsive. If we needed someone, they would have someone to us in a day or 2, being that they are a local contractor. For the other 2 work scopes, rough carpentry package, TNT was our lone bidder on that package. They are only bidding on phase 1 as rough carpentry is not needed for phase 2. And then work scope for the fence package is Keller Fence North Company, that's only one bidder, and their total is $66,000.
That the rough scope, the rough carpentry, that is to frame in after the Roosevelt is down, right? Frame in that area, safety and or for the students and stuff, right?
Temporary enclosures to kind of have it closed off in between the buildings, so it's not just free and open.
Okay.
Clarify, those walls, those temporary walls will be put up before we sever the building for Roosevelt,
Okay,
because that will take place when kids are in the building, so we want to have that wall up, so.
okay.
Another item that I brought up was that the district would like to salvage some of the items in the schools. These items were doors, wood, millwork, trim, built-in cabinets, radiator, and there's a relatively new boiler as well. We spoke with Rachel, who was the low bidder for demolition, and they have agreed to no price revision. The only thing that they will be salvaging, because it is figured into their demolition costs, would be copper pipe, copper wire, and the valuable metals.
Who would, by the school district, do the salvaging work? Our maintenance people? Our school district maintenance people?
I do not have that answer. That hasn't been discussed with us.
So I'm kind of farther away. What was the question?
Well, salvage by the school district, these things. Who would do that in our district? Our maintenance people?
What I would recommend is that we first start with the Buildings and Grounds Committee, once you've identified who they are, and then we'll come up with a plan for how that should be done. We would just need to get in there between when the students left and they started doing other materials, or we probably could start doing some of it. So we would look for a process to remove some of the woodwork that folks might want and folks might bid on away, but we would have to create a process for that.
So then, school ends like June 3rd, they would have a timeline, obviously, because the demolition people are gonna wanna get in there, and the abatement people are gonna wanna get in there, and, I mean, if you start abating when people are still taking out woodwork and stuff, I don't think that would be.
No, and I'm trying not to look at Pat right now because I know he's
Yeah.
gonna tell me it's a tight timeline. So Director Addy, we would have to come up, starting with the Buildings Facilities Committee, come up with a process to see what we could start taking out fairly soon. Who would do it, what would happen to it, how that would work so it didn't interrupt Pat's schedule with the abatement and the demolition. So this is a new thing we've talked about, because what we don't want to have happen is see the building come down with all of this unique woodwork on the inside. So we think we can remove a lot of it so that it's not demolished. And we just need to come up with a process for that.
I guess the key thing is we had heard there was an interest in some salvage by the district or some of the citizens. We just had to confirm with the bidder that they wouldn't charge more, because we're going to be asking you to approve these bids tonight. We wanted you to know that they will not charge more for those items on the left side of the
Okay.
So you have that option. If you choose not to salvage any of them, that's fine.
So this was not in the bid for the demolition of the old Evelyn Junior High School?
All salvage is by the demo contractor when they bid, unless we specify different.
And so we did not salvage anything from the old Evelyn Junior High School.
We did not.
But
We
I'm
did
sure-
not in these bid documents until we just heard of this concern.
And I'm
Sure.
glad we're doing it this time.
I'm sure this will be on every campus from here on in.
It,
I thought, not to throw into the muddy waters here, I thought that there was, some people had bid on getting a few items out of the junior high, and they never came and got them.
Yes, that is true, Director Reardon.
Okay. Yes, and I agree with you, because this question always comes up by my gentleman at my posterior here.
Items are you referring to?
He always asks about that, the woodwork and the built-in cabinets, and so now we have an avenue to see if there is a need.
and just to clarify, my answer to the question was it was never put in the bid documents that was approved, but the actual demo contractor was going to allow that, and then it never happened. It's really better if you want to salvage something to specify in the bid documents ahead of time, then everybody looks at it.
Okay.
In this case, we did it after, and it is an option.
So Pat, we're gonna have this option again before the tech building comes out, correct?
It is not in the bid documents for that. Are you talking the manual arts?
No, not in Virginia. I have two items outside of the Malone Hall. I've talked to Dr. Smith about them. There are some people in town that are very concerned. They were built by a William, what's the name, who was what was his name? William Goodman. And part of this was paid for by the state of Minnesota, and it's for all of the range students' children that have died. And a lot of concern of what's going to happen to those, but we haven't quite found a home for them yet. They weigh approximately 1,600 pounds. They're bronze.
Are these statues? I didn't understand what you're.
They're hanging on a wall. They're plaques. They're huge.
Stone plaques?
I'd like the board to decide that we're going to donate those to someone before it's too late.
Yes, Director Tamero is talking about some very unique pieces of art that's in the Virginia High School outside the Goodman Auditorium walls. No relation to the gentleman who made the art, there just happened to be the same name. So we will find a separate home for them. Those unique pieces of art will not come down with the building. Those we need to keep safe and find a home for them. But yes, Director Farrell, we do need to find a safe home for them.
This would be a great opportunity to tell you that that building right there would be the perfect opportunity. It's for all those Iron Range students that have died. Yet, when we asked about that building, we have no room to put anything in there.
And we have a number of items, and I know Jeff Carey is working on those. There's some artwork pieces. I know you have had several requests already. You don't have some of the items donated to you. I believe there's going to be some more coming on, but we've mainly focused on Roosevelt right now. We will focus on Virginia High School here once we make sure we get the Roosevelt stuff taken care of.
Keep in mind that the high school will be a year later, so.
I won't be here in a year, but.
Say that again?
Before then.
I would say that we could call that a furnishing, but we can go back when we make that note, Morgan, to go back and talk to the demo contractor about those. Those are plaques, I take it, outside of the auditorium?
Yes.
Stone or brass? Or,
yes.
yeah, I would call that more of a furnishing, and we should be able to take that out without a problem. Just need to know where they need to go and who's going to take them out.
I thought by bringing it up tonight, maybe we could get one of the committees to find a spot in that building for them. I guess be removed tomorrow.
I guess the first thing is getting it removed and out of the building before we drop it, and where you're going to store it.
Okay. Thank you. So noted, Tom. We will find that out for you.
All right, so just a recap of everything, bid results. There was one revision, if you're following along on the presentation, recommended contractors, the lowest contractor being that we are recommending Mabo Systems instead of Dorn Associates. So this is just a recap of everything I went through with the grand total at the end, and this is including the estimated Arrowhead consulting costs. So that's your abatement consulting agency. So we had our total $1,870,000, and what was budgeted was $2.87 million. This kind of leaves $1 million misalignment. There's a couple of reasons there's a misalignment here. First of all, there's 160,000 square feet more demolition than the original referendum plans. Second, the major unknown hazardous materials that were found. The survey was conducted after the estimate. That's why these materials were found afterwards. So there's asbestos-containing terrazzo, which is rare, and there was also asbestos-containing structural steel fireproofing. And then we all know what's going on in this world right now with inflation. As far as schedule goes, right now we are at the school board approval. Afterwards, we will begin the abatement of materials tentatively on the 13th of June. It will be a 5-week period of abatement. We'll follow up that directly with the demolition work, which will begin on the 18th of July, for a 7-week duration. And the North Star Elementary construction would begin on the 6th of September of this year. The next year would be when the high school annex abatement and demolition would take place. That would be on the 12th of June for 12 weeks, being that it is a bigger building with more hazardous materials. And following that would be the demolition, which would begin on the 5th of September. And that's also a 12-week period. And then the North Star Elementary site work phase 2 would begin 20 May of 2024, and that's a 12-week period. The overall existing demolition budget update. If these bids that were discussed tonight were approved, there'd be 39% of your referendum budget remaining. Being the Virginia campus is 51% of that. We are before the amount of here for the Evelyn campus that we have already. The priorities as far as funding, where the money is going. Priorities are the 3 new school facilities that are in process right now. We have the Laurentian Elementary, the Rockridge High School and their athletic fields, and the North Star Elementary is in the bidding process. The demolition of the worst existing buildings would be the next priority we have here at the Virginia, Roosevelt, and High School. That's required, so we can take that down. We've already taken down the Evelyn Junior High School and are in progress of the Evelyn Manual Arts. Following that, we have the Gilbert Old Gym area that is not realistic to remodel, and then the demolition of the other existing facilities that cannot be sold. The best way to maximize existing buildings demolished is by actively selling them. Right now, the more money that comes in from these buildings is the more money that we can have to take down some more buildings.
I have a question pertaining to the overall budget. Now, at the last quarterly report, and I know we're getting one in a couple weeks here, we were told basically it's about $2.5 million short on the demo, and that's with the revised demolition, the greater scope of work in Virginia, and everything we just talked about. Plus, that would be assuming if we aren't able to repurpose any of the Evelyn campus, as far as the high school, the Franklin, the football field, the gym. I know we had assumed at one point that the gym and the football field thought the city would want, and they might, hopefully they still will, or someone steps forward that we're, able to repurpose the facilities. But are we looking at today, as we speak, basically a $2.5 million shortfall in the demolition budget if we aren't able to repurpose any of the facilities, and if we choose to demolish all of the facilities that we will no longer be used, or is it greater than that?
Well, the question, Matt, is if we were to demolish all the buildings that we said during the referendum, all the Evelyn campuses, all the Gilbert campuses, where would we be sitting in our budget, in a deficit?
Yeah, and I think, my understanding was we're $2.5 million short if we aren't able to repurpose anything, given that where we're at now, given these bids, and now we have hard bids on a significant chunk of it. Is that where we're at, or is it worse? And hopefully, no one hopes more than I that, we're able to repurpose some of these buildings, have a viable developer step forward and say, hey, we want this building and we're willing to do this, and this is our plan, and this is how we're going to get it done. Or alternatively, have the cities, the respective cities, whether it's Gilbert or Evelyn, step forward and say, hey, we really want that gym, and we'd like to do something with the Franklin. That would be ideal in my mind, and kind of the same thing in Gilbert. But if we aren't able to find anyone, and if we aren't comfortable with selling any of this, and I'm 100% Yeah, let's get as aggressive as we can, but at the same time, I think we have to be realistic, and I know we're gonna hear a presentation in a little bit. Who's gonna step up and say, hey, I really want that building, and I'm gonna make this thing into something that you can all be proud of when I'm done, and here's what I have that shows you that I'm serious about doing that. But I guess the question is if we aren't comfortable that anyone steps forward, if neither of the cities step forward, I mean, where are we at today?
Realistically, we would be able to take down the Gilbert campus, the Virginia campus. We're going to ask that you approve that tonight. We could take down the Gilbert campus. We would not be able to remove the remaining portion of the Evelyn campus, just in the big picture. That's where we're at on funding right now. As you sell real estate, I mean, you have a vacant lot in Gilbert. I don't know how you want to handle the the tennis courts in Gilbert. There's different areas there. If those are sold and those dollars get put back in, that helps that situation. But in the big picture, that's where you're at right now. That's where we are at as a team.
But that's just.
What is that as a number, Pat?
Beans. Those are small beans, so.
Yeah, we have, say that again?
It's a small amount of money to get for a lot. I mean, it may be $50,000 or something. That's, you have to drop in the bucket, but it's nothing compared to what I see here as
Can you
being.
go back on the slide?
Where do you want me to go to?
Back to the picture. So right now you have $3 million remaining. Okay? It's no longer working. But you have $3 million remaining there. If you look at the Virginia campus and what that costs, the Gilbert campus is not one of the major items that Morgan covered here. Is the Virginia campus has a lot of asbestos-containing terrazzo, which is something that's pretty unusual and takes a lot of effort to remove. That's a big portion of why this budget went to where it did. And keep in mind, this referendum budget was set before any of the site surveys had been done for hazardous materials. That's why we didn't know that at the time. So to answer your question on dollars, about $3 million is what we have left. We feel that the Gilbert campus will be in that realm and that we can get that down, but we would not have additional dollars above and beyond the junior high and the manual arts, which are already taken care of up on this board. That's what we would have left.
How much you think it's going to cost to take down the Evelyn campus?
It's going to be about $4.
We're about 4 million short.
Especially if you want to take down the football grandstands now, because that was never in anybody's demolition site before. And we don't know where that is at with the city. It was our understanding that the athletic fields, the hockey area, the playground, those areas were going to be taken over by the city of Evelyn in initial planning. And if they don't want to take those over, are you going to demolish those? Because that's pretty significant, that football stadium grandstand.
My understanding, I don't understand things very well sometimes, was that there was money to take everything, and if we were able to repurpose certain parts of it, all the better. That'd be money that we could use for something nice that we want.
And I guess I'd like to work with you offline and show you what that everything was, because that was a presentation that went to the board that showed what was going to be demolished and what was not, and that estimate was put together. To say everything was not considered. In the initial referendum planning, when you talked about what was going to be demolished, Malone Hall was going to remain. The Roosevelt was going to have selective demo on the pool and bleacher area, but the building was going to remain. There were a lot of differences between what was initially estimated for the initial plans and then things developed later, and we still have the same amount of dollars. So I can provide those graphics to you in that presentation if that would help.
Sure, thank you.
And regardless, I guess just think about it that way as a board. You can get through Gilbert, but if you can sell part of Gilbert, then you can get through a portion of Evelyn. and we can come to a compromise, but it's awfully difficult to remove all of the buildings given our current situation.
Are there any further questions?
Other questions?
Morgan, excuse me. One thing I'd like to let the board know, and also those who are watching it, is play into some individuals who will present you after this, is that what's catching you is COVID. COVID is one thing that's catching you. When all this started, there was no COVID. That is causing an inflationary increase that nobody expected. What also is catching us is the terrazzo. That years ago, when Virginia put this terrazzo in, they happened to buy unwillingly, unknowingly, the terrazzo that had asbestos in it. We have to deal with it. That's the reality of the situation. Now, also, when we were going, that when the original bond was sent to the voters, we had to do a lot of back work to get ready for it. You can't just have a vote. So all of the dollars were figured way ahead of time before we even knew who Pat was. And there's a limit to what you can ask the taxpayers. Because right now, in your heads, it's very easy to go, why don't we just get another $3 million? Why don't we get another $5 million? There's a limit to what you can ask the taxpayers. We were at that limit as far as what we felt we could ask the taxpayers. The IRRB had clearly told us this is the limit, thanks to their generosity. The voters were very generous in their saying yes. We were at their limit of what so now we're at the point of this is what we have. Now what are we going to do with it? Circumstances change. The situation is not what it was when it started. And I do remember this, because I'm the one who is saying it, going around to all of the community meetings. I said at literally every community meeting, and we heard this clearly, if we can repurpose the buildings, if we can find someone who's willing to buy them and repurpose them, that is really our first choice. And that made sense to people. That's really what a lot, and I'm not going to say everybody, but that made sense to people. So we still want to try to repurpose the buildings, because I stood up in front of people, and that's what I said. You can change, you're the school board, you can do what you want, but that is what folks did here. So we're at the limit of what we could ask the voters. COVID is something we did not anticipate. The asbestos in the tile, no, we did not anticipate the volume of it that we're getting. There's nothing we can do about it. And so this is the cards we're dealt right now. Now, I'm also going to add something in here that the Laurentian Elementary, and people will see it, it's got everything in it. It's on budget. It's got almost everything in it. We do need to protect, my opinion, the high school is going to get built. We'll be okay there. We need to protect North Star Elementary. We don't know what the bids are. You'll find out in a little bit. But we do need, the two buildings are not going to be equal, meaning look exactly the same, but they do need to be comparable. So you do as a board, my opinion, need to pay attention to also protecting North Star. So you're able to finish that one on budget. The Laurentian element just happened to be able to build first. Nothing was there. We had to wait in the Virginia side because there was a building there. There was a process and order. So you have a number of things to consider as a school board. And we'll work our way through it. This will all work out. We have to adjust to the circumstances as they are changing. The circumstances are changing. The bright side is you did what almost no school district does. You do have some money to tear down buildings if you need to. And we're already going into that. That almost never happens when schools send things to the voters. So you do have money there to take the worst end of the buildings down. And you do have some options. And Pat will finish his presentation here. You can ask Pat and Morgan questions, but you're also going to hear a presentation, and you're not in the business of redevelopment. But We hear this concept, what can we do with the old buildings? What do you do with them? You're tearing down the worst of the old buildings. Those are the toughest. You do have some buildings that they're not in bad shape, that you might have somebody interested in redeveloping, but it's got to be a concerted effort between the city, private developers, and other things. That's not your job, but your job is to find out if you have a seller or a buyer out there who has the means and the knowledge and the assistance to get this done, which is why you're going to hear the next presentation. But in short, I just want the board to know that there's more variables here at play, and they're all mixing together.
I'd just like to comment that we have asked the taxpayers for more money, and we have gotten it. And what I'm referring to is the $3 million from the Evelyn Gilbert General Fund, the $1.5 million from the Virginia General Fund, the $2.6 million in interest on the accounts, the idle money, the great work that Willie has done for us. That's all extra in this thing. So we have, and it's a little, I don't know, to be this far in the hole after all of that. We've gotten about $10 million in additional funding from what we had originally asked in the referendum. It's all being put to good use, don't get me wrong, but we have.
I think one thing to remember too, if you can go back to the pie chart again, Morgan, is remember back when I was pushing, and I know not popular, we need to get the junior high priced and demolished. We need to get the manual arts priced and demolished. The reason for that is we could do that at the time. It helps us define how much of the pie is going to be left here. So that's why that's our reasoning. We're eating the elephant one bite at a time here. And we knew this was going to be a big chunk. Should have been a little bit less if it would have been less hazardous materials, but we knew it was a big chunk. And now we are going to get North Star Elementary's pricing in, and then we're going to go right into the Gilbert demolition pricing. And the way we're going to bid Gilbert is the area that is the worst that we were always going to demolish because the city had no interest in it. There's an older portion of that which we can present to you in the quarterly meeting session. And then we're going to have an ad alternate to tear all the rest down. That way you'll have options. So we'll have a lot of this pricing, we'll have all the pricing in except for the Evelyn demolition pricing. And then we can make some good decisions as a team. And I think that'll give you there's a method to this madness to keep working in on this green section here and letting you know what we can do and what we can't.
And I do think we do have an agreement with the city of Evelyn. That was simply to tell the city of Evelyn that if we find someone that we believe is going to redevelop this, but you don't, you have the right to step in and take those respective facilities over yourself. I mean, it really does not tie our hands, I don't believe, contrary to what you might read in the newspaper.
You know, when you look at the Laurentian Elementary, there was budget alignments that, constant budget alignments to keep that within line. And I do feel, Noel, that's probably what's going to happen to the North Star. There's going to be things you might do without over there that you got to keep it within budget because remember everything on the high school and the Laurentian Elementary was all basically purchased pre-COVID. Mm-hmm. Now with inflation and all that, I do believe that as a businessman, I believe that the North Star is going to be well over budget.
So, and
just because of inflation.
And it could happen, so I guess at this point, from my humble viewpoint, would be just for the board to consider that as one of a number of variables coming up. We'll take them through it, but I wouldn't be surprised if the bids come in a little bit higher than we really would like to. You're right.
I mean, on some items that me as a business I'm buying, I'm paying probably 17 to 38%. I just use those numbers because those are the numbers that I always see that I'm paying from last year. This time, I'm paying 38% more on some especially items that are made of metal, steel. I'm thinking that much more.
And then, just to cue up the next speaker, the more you can redevelop, the more of this green piece of the pie could be put to North Star if that does happen. Again, we want to not just estimate, but actually get hard bid pricing and commitments out of these contractors. And we will have North Star Elementary and Gilbert in your hands before we ever start North Star Elementary. And that would be very good for decision making.
I'm sorry, but it is what it is. The way I see it, we have no choice other than to approve the bids that have been presented. And as such, if it's time, I'd make a motion to do that.
I would support that. We're in too deep to switch streams here.
Motion by Director Solberg, second by Director Yuhan. Thank you. Is there any more discussion? Any more discussion? No further discussion. All those in favor of approving the demolition budget signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
7-1. Director Sorkin? No.
One question, the next board meeting is like the 24th, and we will be doing our quarterly update to you on all the budgets. Do you want that as a work session from 5 to 6? Or do you want that as your agenda from 6 o'clock?
I'd prefer it as a work session, and then we can get on with it.
Me too.
As long as all the board members are going to spend that time, whether it's a work session or a regular board meeting, I'd rather have it in the board meeting so it can be recorded and the public can have the same information. We're going to be here no matter what, but I think it's good information for the public. So even if it's separate, then I would suggest recording that also separately.
I'd be good with.
I'd be fine with that.
Absolutely.
But at 5 o'clock they're recorded so public can get the report as well. And the documents are all public records too. Right? And the documents are significantly thicker than what.
Public hearing at 5 o'clock that day. School closure.
Oh,
What day?
back at 6?
Okay, 6 o'clock it is.
Point.
Okay, 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
We tried. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Item number 11, fundraising update. Director, I made you a director, Willie.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. First of all, congratulations on all your new positions on the board. And thank you for everything that you're doing. As this meeting has shown, there's a lot of stuff to do. So thank you for all of the work you're putting in. It's much appreciated by everybody. I would like to introduce Mike Groves as he's going to talk about a family donation.
Thank you, Willie. My name is Michael Groves. I was a 2001 Eveleth graduate. Grew up in Ely Lake, just south of Eveleth. I'm here representing my siblings, Corey and Christy Groves, Casey Groves and his wife Elsa Bonnet, Jim Matson and Sarah Matson, my sister, and my wife Megan Groves, who were not able to be here. Our dad, Larry Groves, he was born and raised in Virginia. Many of you know Mr. Groves if you have been in Virginia. He graduated in Virginia High School in 1965. Mr. Groves, as he was known, taught generations of family members over his 33-year tenure as the junior high and high school choir director. He retired in 2003. Larry influenced and inspired his students' musical and personal growth. He set high standards, always encouraging and supporting his students to exceed them. Mr. Groves, you know, the one thing I loved about my dad is he always united, and still does, united talents by bringing together the academics, the athletes, the gearheads, the rough and the tough. He brought them all together to create music that was, you know, I think truly remarkable. This was witnessed by many through his choir concerts, musicals, madrigal dinners, and so on and so forth through countless other activities. Today, our dad shows an immense amount of pride
for the successes of his former students. We hope that Rockridge, and thank Rockridge Public Schools for accepting our donation of $10,000 as a dedication to the Larry Groves Music Learning Lab located in the Performing Arts Center. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say that I had your dad for a choir instructor, and he was amazing. Those years were amazing, and I will never forget him and just the, enrichment to my life during that time. So thank you.
I have.
Not a nicer guy you would never find at Larry Groves, I'll tell
I
you.
have one personal story. Is my son graduated in 2004. He had your dad in 2003. When your dad left, my son left the choir.
Okay.
I said, no, you're not going to leave the choir. Your dad personally talked to my son and said, you got to give it a try. And he gave it a try his senior year, but your dad was phenomenal. And even when he was retired, he came back and talked to my son's wife. And I see him every once in a while. I'll say hello. So say hello from Tim Reardon and Patrick.
Kind words.
I really think he made kids that did not like choir, did not want to be in choir, to be passionate about it. And it was, that's what I'll always remember about him. It's cool.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a great word, Nicole, passion. I had him also. And passion is exactly the word. That's the way I remember him, he'd look at us at piano and he'd, come on now. Oh, it was great. Plus, he could bench press 400 pounds in the weight room, which was absolutely incredible to us kids. As he'd come down in his work clothes, him and a couple other teachers, and show us kids, hey, you guys think you're tough, but watch this. So, no, it was a lot of fun. So, thank you to the Groves kids. This is going to be wonderful. I was able to show Michael around today and show him where it's going to be on the new campus, so that was a lot of fun. We have a couple other donations coming through tonight, and one is the Koski donation, and this is in memory of Michael Koski, and it's from Annette Vonderhaar Koski. Annette was a high school graduate, and from Candace Maxwell, the daughter, and Brian Maxwell, son-in-law, and the rest of the family and friends of Michael Koski. It is in his memory of my husband, Michael Koski. Wife Annette graduated in 1975. Our daughter Candace graduated in 1998. She was the drum majorette her senior year of high school at Virginia. She played and still plays flute and piccolo. She also was the salutatorian for her graduating class, and we would like this to go towards the Vukmanich Music Learning Lab in the Rock Ridge Performing Arts Center, a $3,000 donation from them. So thank you to the Koskis. We have an anonymous donation of $6,000, and this is to go towards the Steve Kersey Legacy Fund. This is a portion of the commitment that is made by the anonymous donor to match $10,000 raised by the Gilbert High School classes of 83 through 86. And when that happens, the donor will donate $20,000 more to be added for a $30,000 donation in total anonymously. So $3,000 has been raised by the Gilbert High School 83 through 86. So the donor donated $6,000 along the way so far. So hopefully we can get that up, and we have some events planned for this spring. Try to get the 83 through 86 to get us up to $10,000 so we can get the double match of $20,000. And we'll continue to work on it. And thank you to Margaret Eilertson McAllister for her $600, $300 to the Mr. Franzen Potential Music Learning Lab planned, not potential, the Music Learning Lab planned, and Mr. Vukmanich, $300 each for those. And $100 from Patricia Deginsky, so pardon me for not knowing that, from San Antonio, Texas, in honor of the Winter family. So it's been a good couple weeks again. Thank you.
Awesome. Nice job.
Good job.
Item number 2, Farm to School Program. Yes, you can.
Okay. Everyone.
Hello.
I'm Heather Mahoney. I am the new Rutabaga Project and Food Access Manager at AEOA. So if you're not familiar with the Rutabaga Project, we're a partnership between Iron Range Partnership for Sustainability and AUA. Currently, I'm working under a USDA-funded grant that is focusing on a lot of different areas, but kind of our main areas are promoting farm to school, promoting and expanding the local farmers markets. AUA actually manages the EBT program for Tower, Cook, Virginia, and Hibbing. And we also support and expand farm to school programs. So right now I'm on the Mesabi East grant writing program. We just finished up, submitted today, their USDA implementation grant, so yay. But also, and Ely is submitting a turnkey grant in cahoots with Mesabi East, so that'll be exciting. So I'm just here to talk about farm to school. We did have, I believe, a flyer that was going to be up.
I think they have it in there.
Or otherwise, I'm sure you also have that right from the table. So I don't really have a big, huge presentation. It's more so just, I'm going to be here to literally plant the seed, pun intended, for farm to school. So this sheet here, if you grabbed it, has a lot of really cool websites. I will save you the time of going through all of them right now, but there's some federal websites, there's state websites, there's different places you can find a lot of information on, not just farm to school, but how to fund it, because it's expensive sometimes to buy local foods. It's expensive to buy maybe pans or items that you might need for your kitchen. So there's a lot of different grants out there. So really, I'm just here to introduce you to Farm to School. So Farm to School connects Minnesota farmers and kids by serving local food and students' meals, also teaching them about local agriculture and educational activities. You also have another flyer, which I will let you look on your own. So Aiken also does Farm to School. So they put together this 2-page flyer. There's just a lot of good stats on there. If you Google Aiken Farm to School SHIP, they have a lot more documentation, but the other one was 16 pages. I figured I'll start with the short and sweet one because it's just me introducing this to you. So just to kind of talk briefly about the funding, because I know you have a lot to discuss yet today. I just wanted to cover the main grants that most schools are using for the Farm to School in Minnesota. So the USDA grants, there's 3 common grants that the USDA issues every year. Every year there's, for this last year, they are going to be awarding $12 million, so there's a lot of money in the bucket. The USDA grants do require a 25% match, but that could be cash or in kind. It's a 2-year grant cycle. There's an implementation grant, which is what Mesabi East just applied for. That's typically $50,000 to $100,000. The turnkey grant is usually no minimum, but there's a maximum of $25,000 to $50,000. It kind of depends on your school. But the turnkey grant is really meant for really small starter projects. So turnkey is what Mesabi or what Ely and Northeast Range are looking at. So they're looking at getting a hydroponic tower to grow in the classroom. That's it. They're not looking at, buying $300,000 of carrots from Heather's Home Goods and Embarrass. They're looking at just something little to get them started with egg in the classroom. So I just wanted to kind of show up today to talk about Farm to School, just again, planting the seed, but know that there's a lot of resources out there if you do decide to adopt Farm to School, and you can start as small as getting a hydroponic tower in a classroom. You can go as big as getting, $300,000 grant and buying all sorts of good things. So they also offer grants through the Minnesota Agri Farm to School grant program. So for fiscal year 22, they're going to be awarding up to $748,000 for Minnesota. That is a reimbursement grant, so you spend the funds and request reimbursement. They have a First Bite mini grant, so that's meant for schools with little to no experience with Farm to School. It's a real small grant of $2,500 to $5,000. Again, that could be something like buying pans for your kitchen so you can cook something, or buying a set of knives so you can cut up carrots or something like that. It can be really small. They also have a full trade grant, which actually Mesabi East recently received, and that is the funding is based on the amount of meals you serve, so the dollar max can vary depending on how many meals you're serving in school. But that can be used for something like taste testing, or maybe you want to add a Minnesota Monday where you're adding a theme to your school menu. There's also some additional grants for equipment, so it's not just all buying food. There is different grants that you can get through the Minnesota Agri Farm to School grants. But you're not limited to just state and federal funding too. So for example, Mesabi East received funds from Essential Health Grant to pay for student agripreneurs to grow food in the greenhouse and sell it at the farmer's market. So there's a lot of different resources out there. Again, you have the sheet that has the state, federal websites. It does talk about the farm to school programs. There's a ton of frequently asked questions, webinars, all sorts of things that you can take a peek at to learn and look. I will say that the USDA grants were due today. So I'm pretty sure you don't want to write a 5-page grant with me today, but planting the seed for maybe next year or even the Minnesota Agri Grants, that might be something that you'd be interested in pursuing. I work at the Redeveloping project. I am a resource for you. All of these local schools are resources for you. You have SHIP coordinators, so that's statewide health improvement program. There's a lot of different resources out there if you decide to take farm to school. And I was just going to cover one FAQ, or not necessarily FAQ. One of the most common myths that I've heard, and I had myself as a producer, is I have to grow 7 million carrots to feed everybody on Monday through Friday. And you really don't. I mean, I brought my first box of produce to Mesabi East, and it was super exciting, and it was literally like a box. But they used it for taste testing. It was kohlrabi, 2 different kinds of radishes, and one other thing. And it was like, this is what I got. We had a really terrible drought year, but they were able to use it for taste testing, and they were able to purchase it. We got chickens this year, so we're going to start producing or selling eggs to the school. So just know that you can kind of go as little or as big as you want with the program, and that I am here. My contact information is on the handout. Take a peek at the Aiken information. Any questions, give me a holler or send me an email. I don't know if you have any questions right now, but I'll be quick because you got lots to talk about yet.
Is this like a partnership that could happen with our home ec classes and things like that?
Yeah, so for example, Mesabi East, they applied for X number of dollars, but it spreads out into their culinary arts class. I mean, they're growing food at the greenhouse that they're bringing to the culinary arts class. The culinary arts kids are testing out recipes to bring to the food service director in the cafeteria. They're doing surveys. I mean, there's the science teacher there is talking about growing potatoes and carrots in science class, so it really can span to more than just the cafeteria. It really is meant to be kind of a full circle ag ed plus getting kids to know about how to grow food, where they can get local food. But then on the flip side, which is also what the other part of my focus for my grant is supporting northern Minnesota farmers. Farm to school is a really cool way to sell a whole lot of root crop at the end of the year, because I believe there's a stat of like 2% of Minnesota farmers work strictly as farmers. Everybody else works off farm. I mean, I work full time and I have this little farm in Embarrass. But if you can sell farm to school, you don't necessarily have to go to a market every Tuesday and then hope you can get vacation and all these things. So it's a really cool way to also support your local farmers. There's a lot of protein farmers in the area that can sell you a frozen pork chop that'll be good, just as good today as it will be in 2 weeks. But to lug a freezer to market and have to sell every weekday. So it's as a producer, as a farmer, it's a really cool way to, I know on, let's say April 1st, when you're looking at your contracts, I know that you need me to grow this many carrots, and I know that you need me to, you're going to buy this many pounds of wild rice or this, whatever it is. And it makes it so much nicer for the farmer to be able to say, okay, I know I'm going to sell this product if I can grow it. Now, grasshoppers and drought and all that good stuff up here sometimes, frost can impact that. But yeah, so it really is a way you can kind of spread it throughout a lot of different avenues with curriculum. And it can really be as little or as big as you want it to be.
Very cool. That would be really, I think that would be great for our kids.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Aiken handout has some cool thoughts for the kids, so the kids love it too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 11.3, Bethel's presentation.
And is it okay if I take my mask off? Yes. Okay, thanks. My name is Erin Hannafenberg. I'm with an organization called Rethos. We are a nonprofit organization based in St. Paul with offices in Winona. And we are hopefully within the next year or so going to have another office in Duluth, because we are eager to have a presence in the Northland here. I am the deputy director of the organization, but also the director of the newly launched Rethos Policy Institute. This is the vehicle that we use to share preservation policies and ideas with people all throughout the state and like yourselves that are serving on behalf of the public and might be receptive to some information about how you can do things that will have some opportunities for building reuse. It's not often that I get to talk after you've just heard a presentation about the high costs of demolition. So I'm going to hope that I am able to provide you with some ideas and some reason for some hopeful strategies for reuse of the existing buildings that have not yet had their fates determined and decided. As I said, we're a 501c3 organization. We were founded in 1981 as the Preservation Alliance of Minnesota, is our former name. We changed our name about 3 years ago to Rethos, partly because we have expanded our programs, one program in particular, our real estate program, outside of the boundaries of Minnesota. And so we needed to remove the Minnesota from our name, and we were trying to think about how else we can market ourselves a little bit differently and share information in a different way. So we adopted the name Rethos. I explain it as it's an ethos, as a essentially character of a community, and then all of the re that comes in front of that. So rehabilitation, restoration, reclaiming, reinvigorating, all of the positive re words you might want to put with the ethos of a community or a place, and that's what we're all about. We operate 4 programs. Primarily, we have a community programs, which operates an education program, and our Minnesota Main Streets program. This is an economic revitalization program that's focused on downtowns. I'm here partly to see Bill Wabick over the next couple of days to see what opportunities for downtown revitalization might exist in that community. As I mentioned, we have a real estate program that helps to direct some loans to projects to maximize use of state historic tax credits where those exist, and I'll talk a little bit about that in the, later. And then I also, as I said, I'm the director of the Rethos Policy Institute. One of the things that we do is we advocate at the state legislature for an extension to the state historic tax credit, which is a real key tool in making sure that buildings are able to be reused and repurposed. And then we also advocate on behalf of Main Streets and other revitalization work. I wanted to give you some ideas about what historic schools can be repurposed as. And one of the things that kind of makes something considered a historic school is whether or not it's listed in the National Register of Historic Places. So I'll explain a little bit about that later, but I just wanted to point out a couple of the historic schools here on the Northland that are already identified as eligible or listed on the National Register. Of course, you know the Hibbing High School. There's a township school, Alongo Township near Cook is listed in the National Register. The Lincoln School in Virginia was listed quite a while ago. The former school in Grand Rapids, which is home to their historical society, as well as a marketplace there. A country school in Larsmont is listed in the National Register. And then there's a number of schools in Duluth, including the old Central High School, which had been their administrative offices, and is actually now being turned into a housing project, as are several of the other buildings that are historic in Duluth. This is it on the north part of the state that are listed in the National Register. It's not for lack of opportunity. There are oodles of historic older buildings that are eligible for listing in the National Register. But it has to be something that somebody intentionally pursues and nominates, or it doesn't happen. People don't just automatically age in. Yes?
You must know that we have one in our school district. The former Evelyn Manual Training Building?
Right, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Another school building that I'm familiar with that has been undergoing a rehabilitation is the Bacchus School property up in International Falls. And it is not unlike the Gilbert campus, where there is the junior high school that was built in 1936, and then there was another school adjacent to that, the Alexander Baker School. I was just thinking AB, lost my thought. So the Alexander Baker School is adjacent to that, And they have, over the past several years, repurposed half of the school as a community center and are now pursuing a housing option for the remainder of that school building. Total for the property is 72,000 square feet in the AB school that they're looking to redevelop, and it's about 36,000 square feet in the Bacchus school. So it's a large complex. As I said, there's a housing proposal up there. One of the things that is unique about this property is that they're using low-income housing tax credits. They're trying to get funding through the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency. There's a lot of pieces that need to align for this particular project to go forward. But they have a lot of really great information about their process at these two links here, and I can share the PowerPoint with you so you don't have to take notes or anything. But I think this is something that sets an example of how to go about trying to find redevelopment options that would be helpful for people in the community to know. But we have seen, especially over the last several years, quite a lot of interest in redeveloping schools as housing. And so I'm going to show you a couple examples that we're familiar with that have just recently been completed. One is the Carlton Lofts building in Cloquet, obviously pretty close to here. It has been rehabilitated as a number of, I can't remember how many units there are, but all housing units, obviously apartments. I thought it would be interesting to see how a classroom kind of lays out. People are really attracted to that historic character that you'd mentioned before in the Virginia school, where there's built-in cabinetry and woodwork and chalkboards and things like that are really fun features for people to have in their apartments. And so a lot of people are really drawn to that. They rent up really easily. This is a school building that just was completed in Winona rather. They had 4 historic school buildings in Winona that the school district had decided to decommission and had to find reuses for. And so 2 of those have now been converted to housing. As I said, this is one of the ones that was just recently completed within the last year. There's 21 units there. It was fully leased pretty much immediately, and not for students, which is worth noting because these are actually people who want something other than a student rental. They're here because they're seniors. They want to be closer to family. They want less maintenance on a single family home or a home out in the country. And so folks have moved to these places. These particular units are fairly large loft kind of style units, very open, as you can see from this example. But the Central Grade School also has apartments that have gone into it, which have more kind of room divisions of a typical apartment. But again, are taking advantage of those really unique features. And the Central Grade School is this amazing tile work that's all throughout the building, like you can see in that water fountain there. So these buildings, probably 10 years ago, were not yet listed in the National Register of Historic Places. It was one of the things where they knew that the school district was going to close them. They actually asked me to come down and speak with them about what the potential might be for National Register designation for these properties. And I said, yeah, I think there's a story to be told here. I think it clearly meets the criteria. They pursued National Register listing, and that's what made these tax credits and these reuses available. There's been a lot of use of the historic tax credit to put not only school buildings, but a number of other kinds of older factories, other vacant properties to use as housing. And we know that there's a shortage all throughout the state, in the cities and the country, all around, that one of the things that is holding back economic development is that people do not have a place that they can find to live so that the jobs can be created in those communities. So there's been a lot of opportunity to reuse those existing buildings as housing, and we think that there's more and more of that as we're moving forward. I wanted to talk a little bit about the historic tax credits. It is not a straightforward program. It's not like you could say tomorrow, okay, let's have the Gilbert School campus be reused as apartments. Somebody go do that and it would be done by the end of the year. It does take some time. There's a process to it. Listing in the National Register is one of those. But then it also has to go through an application process that happens at both the state level and then also at the federal government. But what it amounts to is 20% of the rehabilitation costs are covered through these tax credits that come at the end of the project. So part of it is that they have to have access to the capital to be able to put into these projects up front, and then once the project is completed, then they can claim those tax credits. It's 20% at the state level right now, 20% at the federal level, and so those combined are about 40% of the value of the credit. And the things that qualify as rehabilitation expenses are essentially anything that is like a permanent change to the building, everything from heating and venting and air conditioning to roof repair and repointing the brick or the masonry on the outside, window replacement or refurbishment, flooring, walls, plumbing, all of that kind of stuff, as well as some of the design costs that go into it. The federal historic tax credits have been around since the Reagan administration. This is a tried and true program that has been embraced throughout the country. A little less so in Minnesota because we did not have a state historic tax credit to pair with that until 2010. That was a real game changer. In Minnesota, we used to see maybe 1 or 2, in a good year, 3 projects a year that would use the federal rehabilitation tax credits. Once our state credit went into play and they were able to actually make these projects pencil out, we've started seeing 13, 16, sometimes 20 projects a year throughout the state that are using the rehabilitation tax credits. Unfortunately, the legislature got bogged down last year in dealing with a pandemic and not sure what its revenue was going to be coming forward. And so when those credits were due to expire in June of 2021, they only punted it out for 1 year. So right now there's a sunset date of June of 2022. We will be at the legislature very loudly come January, or end of the month, I guess, to advocate for an extension to this historic tax credit because we know how valuable it is to communities all across the state. This is just a little bit more information about how those are paired and what kinds of work is done to see these credits. And as I said, we have been advocating strenuously for this, have a fairly good idea that with the budget surplus that's projected and with the kinds of support that we've gotten over the past couple of years, that there will be support for this at the legislature, but it is not yet a done deal. So I want to have that caveat. But we've seen, in terms of jobs, in terms of the economic activity, in terms of the labor income that comes through this, that it's a program that more than pays for itself. And in fact, in greater Minnesota, it typically provides $16 of economic development for every dollar that the state is putting in a tax credit. So it's really a very, very high return on investment for state and for that local economy as well. And it's not just the building trades that are actually supported by this money. Everything, essentially every sector, 97% of our economy is supported in one way or another through the historic tax credits. So it's not just that you would see that construction labor with a local increase, should this be something that you guys move forward with for the Gilbert schools and the other ones. It's not only housing that can be done in historic buildings like this. We've seen quite a few that have been successfully reused as community centers, as other public uses. The Henry Hill School in Glencoe, which is their former high school, was one that we were familiar with, where they did about a $5 million overhaul to this school. Actually left a fair amount of the space vacant so that it could kind of evolve as the community's needs changed. But it houses everything from a senior center and their city administrative offices and a library on the upper stories to a really great reception space in their old gymnasium, and it's paired with their auditorium so that you can have productions and city council meetings and all that kind of stuff. The library on this takes up most of the upper story and is a really welcoming space for all ages of their community. And then they have smaller meeting rooms that, is where their historical society meets, and the Chamber of Commerce and other civic organizations. A lot of the funds that are accessed to do that kind of community-focused work, since that's not something that's led by a private developer, is instead something that's undertaken by some level of municipal government. So whether it's the county commission or the city council or the school board or a local historical society or some other 501c3, they can access the legacy grants that are available, the Minnesota Cultural Heritage Grants, that can be used to do things like evaluate the opportunities for reuse, look at the structural condition. How would you add accessibility to a building if that's an issue? How would you get it listed in the National Register? You can hire a consultant, get a grant to hire a consultant to do that process, so that's something that can be assured as the project moves forward. We've done a project, this was about 13 years ago now, but we had done a whole big display that we carted around the state for several years, talking about all the ways that cities and municipalities can reinvest in buildings that they either have acquired, that were private buildings, or public buildings that they have then passed along to private ownership, or sometimes it's public buildings that they've retained and the ways that they've reinvested in those. And we call that Minnesota civic legacy. So there's a lot of comfort out there in terms of people who have figured out how to do this and can move forward. One of the most recent projects that wasn't featured in this display example, but the city of St. Cloud recently reclaimed their former tech high school and now is going to be their new city hall. And they're just about to open that. It was about a $10 million project to do that work, and it's reopening, I think in February. They said was when the grand opening would be finally done. I want to debunk a few myths about the National Register because I know that a lot of people have misconceptions about what it means. It's essentially the official list of sites worth preserving in the U.S. It's administered by the National Park Service in Washington, D.C., but the state Office of Historic Preservation plays a huge role in that as well in terms of vetting those projects and approving nominations to move forward. It has to meet one of 4 established criteria. Essentially, things are associated with broad trends in history. Education is certainly one of those broad trends. It's one of the things that makes a community kind of take that first leap from being a settlement to being someplace where they're investing in their future by educating their children. It can be associated with lives of significant people. Sometimes you have that with schools that are named after people, that there's some significant reason why that was done. It can be listed for its architectural association. I think the Hibbing High School, for example, was primarily for its association as a Gothic, the kind of that Gothic architecture that's so typical of that building. And there's another category D is essentially for things that are archaeological sites. But properties have to typically be 50 years old or older. As I said, they don't just like automatically age in. They actually have to be nominated, and a history has to be written. And then they have to have some design integrity as well. We have more than 7,000 properties in Minnesota that are listed in the National Register now. Some of them are individual properties. The majority of them are actually part of historic districts. Properties can include buildings, structures, sites, landscapes, any kind of object as well. And there's a lot of carrots that come along with this National Register, and surprising to many people, not really any sticks. It does not restrict what you can or can't do with the property. It doesn't mean that you can't alter it. It doesn't mean that you can't demolish it. We see National Register listed properties being demolished literally all the time. But what it does is carry those incentives with it. So it's what makes it eligible for tax credits. It's what makes it eligible for the legacy grants. It makes it eligible for some other federal grants that have been newly established as well. So I just wanted to verbatim put that on the screen so that everybody is seeing it. There is no restrictions from the federal National Register law that comes with that. That is probably the number one myth that I have heard over the last 15, 20 years as I've been doing this work throughout Minnesota, is that people think, well, that means that the federal government is going to tell me what I can or can't do with my property, and that's 100% wrong. I want to talk a little bit about the additional costs of demolition. It's not just a dollars issue, but we're also talking about taking materials that still have usable life, especially in the situation of a usable school building, that's one that's actively used and in solid condition, and carting that to a landfill has some other costs as well. It's taking all of those manufactured materials of that building and essentially saying that we could replace those with a new manufacturing process, right? If you're saying, I'm going to throw this away, there's kind of a presumption that you're going to build something new at some point in the future to meet that need that building otherwise could. So for example, if it was housing, if you're taking a historic school building and could convert it into housing, if you're throwing that in the trash, then you have 30 housing units that are not being met that you would provide with new construction materials. And that's an extra burden on our planet, frankly. Carting those materials to a site, harvesting those materials from wherever they happen to occur, bringing them there is all a big carbon impact that doesn't need to be met if you can reuse a historic building. The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency has been doing a lot of evaluation into what is what is going into their landfills, and a huge chunk of it is construction and demolition debris and waste. And so they're trying to figure out ways to lessen that, and one of those is to promote more opportunities for building reuse as well as deconstruction salvage. So I was really glad to hear that that is one of the things that's being talked about with the Virginia campus, is to remove some of those features that might still have a lifespan to them. And so there's just a ridiculous amount of landfill that is being contributed to by demolishing buildings that still have usable life. And we also know that there's costs associated with maintaining buildings, but when you are talking about potentially knocking something down and replacing it, that is a cost that you can't necessarily anticipate into the future. What you do know is, here's a building that has has lifespan left in it. We can mitigate what its energy costs might be over time by taking that out of the equation. So I will let you guys all read this, and I know that you still have a lot left on your agenda, so I don't want to take too much more time. But I do want to emphasize that we're talking a lot of square footage, a lot of poundage, things that will have to be hauled away from a site when buildings are demolished. And that buildings, historic buildings especially, can be made much more efficient than people typically assume that they can be. I was looking through some historic pictures of Gilbert. I'm also going to be speaking with the Gilbert City Council tomorrow, so I kind of wanted to look at what Gilbert looked like back at around the same time that these school buildings were built, and it was really striking to me to see how many frame buildings and how unimproved the street was back then in 1910, and yet you still have this building standing that looks more or less the way that it did when it was first built. It is standing there as a true landmark, an investment from those earliest settlers of this community in Gilbert to say, hey, we're going to put down roots here. We're going to make this city into a place that is worth living in and is going to have a future. And so that is probably best exemplified in the remaining school buildings. And I think that they have a lot of life left in them. And I would encourage you to do what you guys can. I know that you're not the property developers, but I will say that if anything that I've learned is that historic building and building reuse, preservation doesn't happen by accident. It's not something that you can just kind of like float it out on the wind and hope somebody will pick it up and move forward. It does need to have some intention behind it. And so I think if this is something that, especially as you consider the high costs of demolition and where your money is best spent, if you put it out there that you would endorse a reuse opportunity for these school buildings, that would go a long way towards making sure that there is a developer who knows that this is something that they can come and invest in. Because if it's just something that doesn't seem to have the commitment of the community, then most people are not going to necessarily follow up with that. So, are there questions that I can answer for you?
Can you go back 2 slides?
Yes.
Please.
This one?
One more. There.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Buildings built before 1920 are 90% efficient as those built after the year 2000. That's striking.
So they're on par with recent construction, is what I'm saying.
Have you toured the Gilbert campus yet?
I did. Yep, I saw it this afternoon. Yeah, that's really impressive. It's a lot of square footage. It's a really big building. So, yeah.
We certainly weren't told that top line when we decided to build new schools.
Yeah.
In fact, we heard quite the opposite, but we won't get into that.
Okay. Well, yeah, and this is statistics taken from the General Services Administration, which owns a lot of property, and in all of their property analysis, they know that the oldest buildings are actually partly because of that thermal mass. They're built so solidly, and part of it is a systems thing, right? It's entirely possible that older buildings are not operating the most efficient internal systems in terms of heating and venting and air conditioning and insulation and things like that. But you can do things to make those work more efficiently that will help the building itself not be the factor. It's more the systems that are the factor. So, any other questions? I'm happy to be a resource for you. I actually have my cards for you that I will hand out. I also have lens cleaners and screen cleaners so that as you consider all of the work that you do, not in only regards to the building and the campuses, but all of the other things that you're charged with as a school board, that you have clear vision and open, clear screens, no smudges in the way as you deliberate and make your decisions moving forward. But please do reach out to me if there's more information that I can provide to you, or if I can be a resource in any other way. Just let me do that.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For your time.
Thank you.
Sorry to make you wait so long.
No, that's all right. I'm sorry to go on with the presentation so long.
Good evening. You guys have been sitting here for a very long time. It's almost my bedtime.
Past mine.
Oh, yeah. Greetings from Franklin Elementary staff and the Eveleth Gilbert High School staff. I'm going to start off with talking about the Eveleth Franklin PTA. Being a high school principal for many years and just being an elementary principal for the last 2 years, I'm just in awe of how much the PTA at the elementary level, how the organization and what they do for our students and our staff. They are presenting our students with a virtual anti-bullying program that's going to empower our students to stand up for themselves, stand up for others, and be everyday heroes. They've booked Matt Wilhelm's amazing virtual BMX stunt show. So he was on the Americans Got Talent. He's in the Guinness World Record book. He will be presenting to our students, again, all his BMX stunts while promoting messages to the student body about being a hero every day and that every little small action of kindness can make a big difference in someone's life. So thank you to the Franklin PTA for doing this for our students. Last Friday, I received an email for me to attend the Laurentian Elementary final project team walkthrough for the end of this month on the 31st. And I'm going to say the final walkthrough. That means the project is done, which is just exciting. I'm looking forward to that final walkthrough. And I just wanted to say that it's been a wonderful experience to be a part of this journey of building a brand new building. To work with Kraus Anderson and to see all that it takes to build, and to work with Cunningham and all the architects and to see everybody that comes together to work to build the school. It's been an amazing process, and I felt very honored to be part of that process. So I just wanted to let you guys know how honored I am to be on that committee, the advisory committee. I'm not done with advisory committees though, because I'm also on the high school advisory team, and a project that we're doing right now, working with the interior designers, is we are looking at the floor to ceiling wall graphics. So we have been working with the interior designer on developing scenes for when you enter a learning neighborhood, or when you enter the athletic commons, or you enter our welcome center in the new high school. And Tony Norland, our Virginia arts teacher, he's actually teaching a graphics arts class right now. So he's working with his students on helping develop that collage for our welcome center right now. And so when people come to that welcome center, you know, they're going to see something designed by our students, and that will hopefully tell a unique Rock Ridge story that people see when they enter that welcome center. So that's kind of a neat project that's taking place right now at the high school level. This time of year is the year that we start planning for next school year. So at the high school level, the teachers have been working on their course descriptions, and we'll be having kids register probably no later than the first week of February. So we're just in the final process of getting all of that together. So students 7th through 12th grade will be registering soon. And the last item I wanted to say is that I just submitted a job posting for a summer school coordinator. And I know that it did come out today to our staff. It was posted internally. So I'm happy to say that we will be offering summer school again in the month of June. It'll be for 4 weeks, Monday through Friday, from 8 to 1 for our students. Last year was our first year that we offered summer school to our students K through 8. We've always had summer school and credit recovery for 9th through 12th grade on both campuses. Last year was our first year of offering the K through 8th grade. summer school, and it was a positive experience for our students, and I felt that the staff felt that there was, social and academic gains through offering that summer school, that 4 weeks of summer school last year. So I'm just happy to say that we can offer it again for this students as well. And that's all I have for you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Angie.
Thank you, Angie.
Fran, we want to keep you here a little longer.
I don't want to stay here much longer. You?
Thank you, Angie.
Thank you.
Okay. We're on to policies. We have discussion now of policy 491. Jeff?
I don't know, I can't be like Willie and get up here and talk about exciting things like donating money. I get stuck with COVID policy. But anyway, you guys are dying to talk about tonight, so I'm going to go through a little bit. So on November 5th, the federal OSHA from the Department of Labor issued an emergency temporary standard that included requiring any employer that has over 100 employees to have a mandatory vaccine policy and or vaccine policy and testing requirement. So that immediately went into through the court systems, and there was a stay on it for a while, and we worked on it a little bit, and then it was a stay on it, and then it was out, and then it was in, and as of today, it is actually a law. The Supreme Court did hear oral arguments on it last Friday. Whether or not they have weigh in on it, we don't know. But like I said, as of January 10th, which is today, we are required to have this in place or start to work toward it, I guess would be a better way to put it. So anyway, what it is, any employer that has over 100, and that includes school districts, that are regulated by OSHA, which Minnesota is a OSHA state. There's a state within OSHA that also has to issue some requirements along with it, and they did that last week as well. And their standard is almost identical to the federal one. So what that means for us is we have to choose between one of two policies. Either we have to mandate vaccines for all of our employees, or we can choose, that's 490 or 491, is vaccine mandate, and or you can opt to test weekly. We did meet as a COVID team last Thursday, and decided to recommend to the board we go with 491. Offer that other option. So along with that, you'll see a little later on, what we have to do right now, today, is we have to start formulating this procedure for how we're going to do this. Step one is to collect data on employee vaccination, and then once we find out who's the list of non-vaccinated employees, we have to come up with a testing program. That testing program needs to be in place by February 9th. So we have a little bit of time on that. So from here to February 9th, what we're working on is the actual data collection. And then by February 9th, we have heard that the Supreme Court will definitely weigh in one way or the other. So before we get too far into it with testing and whatnot, we should know the end result. But we'll at least be ready. There are some pretty serious financial implications to not doing this. We have to turn in our data weekly. We don't have to start turning in our data weekly until February 9th. But we need to be ready for it by then. Because once we have to start reporting, if we don't report, $20,000, I believe it's $20,000 fine the first offense, $30,000 on up.
I was told it starts at 14,000 and it can go all the way up to 136,000 per event.
You're probably correct. So anyway, what you have in front of you right now is 491. just to reiterate, the vaccine mandate and or a testing program for any questions you may have. Like I said, the unfortunate thing is this isn't something we really have a choice on. We have consulted with MSBA, we've consulted with MASA, our own legal team. I'll come to the same conclusion that we need to get going on it. So.
I do have some questions because, I just have some questions. So we would be providing testing kits, correct? At no cost to staff?
If they're available, we certainly would, but it's not only providing those test kits, but we would have to administer them as well. Because someone can't go home and take the test and bring it back, and it actually has to be administered by.
So if they have to go outside of the school district to get that, whether it's an appointment at a clinic or St. Louis County or whatever the case may be, who would be liable for any charges that could be incurred? Would it be the school district? Are we paying for that, or the employee?
The employee.
Okay. And then what do you do if the testing kits aren't available anymore? Because if every district is asking for needing testing kits, what do you do if there is no testing kits?
There's a lot of opportunities in the area for testing. So, I mean, I'm stockpiling right now. So I feel like our district will be ready for it.
Okay. And then, so if we would be in charge of doing them in our district, if we're giving the testing kits and stuff, and we're in charge of administering the weekly testing events, who does that? Would it be our school nurse? Would it be somebody from the county? I mean,
we as of right now, and this is real big plan, but we're looking at probably 2 nights after school for a couple hours, and we would be looking for. It doesn't have to be someone in particular. It could be a para, it could be me, it could be a nurse, anyone that's trained to administer that test. And it's not a complex thing. It's not a lot of training or whatnot.
Okay.
We would need probably, if we did it for 2 hours, we would probably need 5 to 6 people at the site. We're looking at potentially testing about 150 people.
Okay.
That's how many you feel in the district that aren't vaccinated?
I'll have a better handle on that number if counties running. Can't run specific individuals, but they can run a group and give me a percentage. 60% of them are not, or whatever, and I'll have that at the end of the week.
Who would this all be applicable to? I mean, does it go to coaches? Does it go to playground attendant workers?
Anyone that comes to school once in a 7-day period to work.
That have direct contact with kids. That would. Okay. Because one of my concerns, and I'm sure it's currently happening, is how much of the nurses' time our current nurses are spending on COVID-related things, whether it's testing, calling home because, or calling parents because a child's symptoms, are possibly COVID, and how much time are those nurses able to spend on their daily things that happen, kids that are diabetic that need, some help with their diabetes, kids that need a Band-Aid or an ice pack. I mean,
This is going to be an after-hours thing, though.
Okay. And then, how are we going to be able to keep employee vaccination status confidential? I called MSBA and was asking some questions about it too. And what I was told, whether it's right or wrong, what I was told was, because I am concerned about the confidentiality piece and privacy piece. And, if people are going in for testing and people are seeing that they're having to wear masks, It's, I mean, people are going to know what their current status is. And so I asked about the confidentiality and the privacy piece. And what I was told was that for HIPAA, as far as HIPAA is concerned, is that only covers for like medical conditions and disease. It wouldn't cover immunizations. Do you know, is that true? Okay.
It's not like we would broadcast it, but obviously.
Yeah.
Figure some things out.
Yeah, because, that's a concern for me. And when I said that the fee or the fines for not, having a policy, $14,000 to $136,000 per event, I was also told that each board member, like if we willfully voted against not having a policy, the individual board member themselves could also you might have to pay a fine yourself out of your own pocket for that. Is that, do you know?
I don't know about that one.
Anything about that too?
That'd be a question for your legal team.
Yeah, we had, last week, MSBA had a coffee session. They have them periodically, and they talked about 3 items, and this was one of the first one. And some of the questions that came up were just about school board members, because there a few school board members that were in the discussions that we'll probably lose our entire school board because they won't vote for it. And the state supposedly has some kind of a policy and purpose and how they would institute a temporary school board if we all decided we were going to resign because of this.
Well, when I was looking over, like our current COVID mitigation plan and looking over the policy 491, and I have a lot of conflict with it and have been thinking about it. And like I said, I've made phone calls and stuff too, but, I'm thinking about how difficult of a position we're being put into. I mean, we're on a board of education, and just difficult because I think school districts in general are short-staffed right now, and everybody's overwhelmed. And add this into it, there are going to be people that threaten to quit and leave, and there's going to be shortages. I mean, what are we going to do? We're worried about class sizes right now. Is there potential to have a lot more kids in classes because we may not have teachers? And when I called MSBA, I was told too that they're anticipating that if this happens, they're anticipating that there are going to be some schools that are completely shut down. So I've got my personal beliefs and conflicts, and then looking from a professional, I consider us as professionals on a board, and the position we're in to make that decision. It's mind-boggling to me that, we're being put in this position. I don't know. It's just, like I said, my personal feelings and my professional feelings as a school board member have me going in different directions. But looking at, the fines that the school district could be facing, and the potential for us individually to be fined as well. And the term used was willful neglect or disobedience of the law. And I don't know.
Not what any of us signed up to do.
No. Nope.
Yeah, this kind of puts us in a precarious situation where we're, want us to vote on something on how to, how to dictate how people, you know, to get the shot or not the shot, or the testing and all this. I mean, that should be left, I don't think that's a board member's duty to do that. I mean, I understand the policy, but I feel uncomfortable.
I do
You know,
too. I mean, that's
But then
been,
again, on the other end of it, you know, we need to protect the students and the staff all at the same time.
and we need to follow the law. I mean, I think if anybody's followed me, and this is my 6th year on the school board, you know, I'm always saying consult with the attorneys, or, you know, the legal aspect of it. And I'm trying to separate my personal feelings, because I'll tell you, I mean, I think that people should make their own choice. I think people should make their own choice, but yet as a person sitting on this school board, I also have to look out for what's in the best interest of the school district financially. But yet at the same time, there's that whole question of, are people going to quit? And then we're not going to have teachers teaching, and classrooms are going to have 60 students in them. You know, again, I got on this board for the Board of Education, for the excitement of farm to school, and, you know, the academies, and getting kids learning about different trades, and this is not what I had planned. And back to John's discussion about salaries, that's why people aren't jumping on boards. You know, we're being asked to make some really tough decisions.
I agree.
As everyday people, you know, in the community, and have our own time jobs.
How the court systems are getting involved in it, and whatever way it goes, it's going to make our job very difficult. Because when you say, will people quit, it's kind of like what happened, I think it was the 4th of January or something. The Mayo Clinic was their drop dead date, and they had less than 3% of their employees.
That they let go.
700.
700 it was.
Well, and then I also got emailed about, sorry, Jeff, I know you guys have been here forever too, but
I got it.
I know I'm already tapped to do that too, but I got emailed about U.S. Steel, and about U.S. Steel not implementing a policy, and, you know, how come they can do that and how come we can't? So that's a great question. So I asked, you know, and it has to, what I was told, and I can see, you know, we're a public school, we're state and federally funded, so we have certain things we have to abide by. Like the mines, they have, you know, I've never been in the mines, I've never toured the mines, I don't know what it's like in the mines, but I was also told, you know, in the mines, they don't have people that are 3 feet next to each other, 30 people, you know, and that's part of it too. And they have different guidelines than we have. But again, it's a
Well, that has nothing to do with
question.
it. That they're not governed by OSHA, they have MSHA.
Yeah.
That's why they got out of it.
Yeah. They have a state plan, and I was told that, you know, likely the people that are the employers that are going to be able to bypass a policy, possibly, are the ones, you know, like the mines and like the airlines, because they're regulated by the FAA. And so I don't know. Like I said, everybody knows I voted against the masks, you know, and I feel like shots and vaccinations are people's choice, and it may not be a person's religious belief, but it's definitely part of their belief system, and it's tough for me. It's tough.
Well, tonight, all we did is put this down for discussion. What we can find out is have Dr. Schmidt find out when we would have to act on this, and if we have to have a special board meeting to act on this, as hard as it is, when we get more information on it, if we have to have a special meeting, we'll have to have a special meeting and get a read on what the Supreme Court, when they feel they're going to come up with.
Well, and what I
Okay. So, there is another policy, and I don't remember the number of it right off the top of my head, that covers you while this is being
developed.
So you don't have to, I mean, this doesn't have to be read 3 times by January 10th tonight. As long as we are reasonably working toward a plan, they will stay off our backs. But we do need to, I mean, we are starting tomorrow morning, we're going to start working on the plan. And come February 9th, if nothing has changed, we'll be talking to you about that.
Well, and again, you know, what I was told was January 3rd was when this was put into law, and it is currently the law, unless.
I disagree with you. It's called the law. Congress didn't pass this, so it's executive orders. I don't call it a law.
Okay.
Congress didn't pass it.
Okay.
That's correct. It is a regulation.
Okay, so regulation was January 3rd. And so that regulation's in place now, unless it gets overturned. You know, they're anticipating February 9th. And then I heard that they're possibly coming out with some opinions this Thursday about it too. And if we can, in good faith, be trying to get information about immunizations or whatever, but not have to implement anything until the February 9th. I mean, I guess I agree with what we did here today and just having a discussion about it.
My suggestion is to have Dr. Schmidt find out answers for us, and if we have to have a special meeting to come into compliance or to vote on something specific so that we, as board members, aren't fined, or we as a school district aren't fined, what actually is our obligation? And then we'll have to have the discussion about it and weigh all the options. So.
Yeah.
My thinking is, even if this does become mandatory, these two policies contradict each other. They're out of date. They're different. Yeah.
One thing, sorry, Polly, one thing is the 10-day quarantine. That's not.
On to 5 now. That's
not the current situation. It's 5.
Yeah, and so.
You have to update that, right? It's 5 days, isn't it?
The CDC guidelines, they put it down to 5 days for isolation.
CDC they have not released anything for schools yet, and the Minnesota Department of Health has not adopted that. So it is coming, but it's not there yet.
So that's one of the things, and we've got a close contact exemption in here, and it says people who are unvaccinated must be masked, but vaccinated people don't have to be masked. It's in this policy. It does. How does that work? And CDC recommends one thing, but it says our district, CDC recommends quarantine after you've had contact with a positive person. Our district is not requiring quarantining, and fully vaccinated people who are asymptomatic do not have to quarantine. So fully vaccinated people, there's so much that really needs to be studied here, even when it comes time to, if we have to pass anything like this. But I just say it's a moot point right now.
Any questions for Jeff?
I do have one. How are we sitting, we put the mask in effect in early October. COVID or non-COVID, how are we sitting kind of as a year-to-date for student absence or sickness? Are we having same amount, more kids sick, less kids sick than prior years?
So just in general.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that, but I think
I'm going to, you do one quick Google search, Omicron variant, paper masks, cloth masks do nothing for that. It's N95s or nothing. So, I mean, I don't know where we're going with those masks. It's just. The paper and cloth do nothing for Omicron variant.
We just went through that. This is a two-ply mask that meets the CDC guidance for Omicron. And that was an issue in our office.
We're getting off the subject here, and I kind of want to pull us back in because we're not making a decision. There's a lot of variables here. And until we know exactly what we need to do, I think we should just move on tonight.
I just wanted to have a discussion about some of the difficult, just some of our thoughts anyways.
Well, we've started down the right road here. Polly's looked at the two different policies and found large differences and things that are not currently correct. Find out what we need to do, what we have to do, and to come into compliance or not come into compliance, and we'll address that at the next board meeting or a special board meeting if we have to, if there's a time frame that we have to meet. That sound fair?
That sounds fair. I just appreciate the conversation, everybody.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Jeff.
No, he's talking to you.
Tim?
What? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
So being that nothing was acted on in this policy, can I assume that the change to the mitigation plan that has the kind of testing plan in, do you table that tonight? On the agenda.
B13-2.
Well, we just take no action on that one also, is what my understanding is.
I'm just asking because
That's what I thought we discussed at the beginning, that we take no action on either one of them. And that includes the mitigation plan. Although I'd like to change it, but that's what we decided.
that's gonna, all right. Correct.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
And John, I have answers to your questions about where we were and where we weren't. I took Jeff's emails since last year and where we started before masks and before the mandates. No, I'm just telling him. I'm just telling you, if we want to talk later, I can help you understand those numbers. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Okay. 12.2 policies that must be reviewed annually, and it's the final reading. We have policy 410, family and medical leave. 414, mandated reporting of child neglect or physical and sexual abuse. 415, mandated reporting of maltreatment of vulnerable adults. 506, student discipline. 514, bully prohibition. 522, Title IX, sex non-discrimination policy, grievance procedure and process. 616, school district system accountability, and 806, crisis management. We have a motion to.
I will make a motion.
Support.
Motion by Director Lotiger, support by Director Addy. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? With no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
7-1 with Director Sorkin in opposition. 12.3, MSBA, MSA policy revisions, final reading. 102, equal education opportunity. 406, public and private personal data. 413, harassment and violence. 425, staff development. 501, school weapons policy. 503, student attendance. 507, corporal punishment. 515, protection and privacy of pupil records. 524, internet acceptability, use and safety policy. And 534, school meals. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
We have a motion by Director Addy.
Support.
Support by Director Gilbert. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? With no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Carries 7-1 with Director Sorkin in opposition. Administrative item, consider proposal by Orthopedic Associates.
Members of the school board, I know the hour is late, but we have Orthopedics Associates on the agenda. You do not have a presentation from them. You've already heard their proposal. So tonight I'm asking you as a board whether you want us to move forward with the Orthopedic Associates proposal and talk contracts, legal language, or if you prefer not to move forward with Orthopedic Associates. That's kind of where we're at. You can tell me you want to wait, that you want more think time. But I guess I'm here asking you, what would you like us to do? Would you like us to move forward and continue discussions with Orthopedics Associates on the details, legal language of what they're proposing? Or would you like us to stop? Or do you want more think time on it or some more whatever it happens to be? So that's what it's on the agenda for.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I vote in favor of continuing going forward.
I'll second.
Director Tamaro and second by Director Dahl. Is there any discussion?
Yeah. I guess I spoke with Dr. Schmidt a little bit. I do have some concerns, some things that I've thought about. I just jotted a few things down. Number one, I don't know about, and certainly I think we have to check into the legality to actually give away public property.
That was one of my concerns too.
Are we giving away public property?
That
wasn't my
we're giving them a lease for 7,000 feet for 20 years. And in the real estate parlance, that's a lifetime, and then some, at least what I know of real estate. Also, have we vetted out the other opportunities to partner with potentially, more robust systems? We have several, I would say, and I don't know, this is going to be a wrong word, but more full service, if you will, where OA, and as good as they are, we trusted them to do my wife's hip. They did a great job. Is more of a niche provider. It doesn't offer the full, and the niche, again, that's a wrong word. It doesn't offer the full scope that some of the other regional providers are. And if those discussions have been just limited to bricks and mortar, then some of the other providers who have owned their real estate and have invested a bunch of money into their real estate wouldn't be as interested in coming in, while they could still provide a lot of these services. I do have a question on the tax liability as far as real estate taxes. I assume as a tax-paying entity, leasing property from us as a non-tax-paying entity, that they would be responsible to pay real estate taxes on that portion of the property, or not real estate taxes, but personal property taxes, if you will, in lieu of real estate taxes that would be assessed based on the value of the property. And finally, it's 20 years. We're making a major commitment. I mean, this building is old. It's showing, I think, some of its age. It's not the best constructed facility. I know that. unfortunately, for better or worse personally. I know there have been improvements to the building, but by agreeing to a lease for 20 years, we're basically committing to keeping the building functioning and in place for the next 20 years. When we bought the building, the intent was to use it as a construction office, if you will, which it's a great construction office, and then to raise the facility. And that's changed now, and I think that's the right decision. But I don't know if it'll be the right decision 20 years from now. So those are my, and then, you know, I think they do a good job from what I've seen on the athletic training contract, but does that lock us in with them for that long also? So those are my concerns. I'm not ready to support the proposal at this point until those are addressed.
Matt, I share your concerns. Were you going to say something?
No, I can, Director Soberg, I can answer some of your questions. The first one about what are we going to do with the buildings in 20 years? We also need to put admin offices in this building. We also need to put the wrestling program in this building. Why? It's way cheaper to put them in this building than it was to put them in the new building, because this building is here already. And so had we put them in the new building, it would have cost money and we would have been cutting something else. So we do need to put the wrestling program somewhere. We do need to put the admin office somewhere. This is the building you currently own. In regards to the length of the time, absolutely. It is a long period of time. What the district would get in return is, now again, this is your decision, is that you get your students have an opportunity they will not be able to get anywhere else, because they will be able to interact with healthcare providers. Yes, I agree it's a limited slice of the total healthcare picture, but they're here and they would be here. So that would be part of any arrangement we worked out with them. And they're willing. They are the only, and I'm going to say only, healthcare provider of significant substance in Northeast Minnesota who has stepped forward and said, we want to do this. I have talked to all the other major ones. I've had the director sitting right across the table from me. We've talked and explained this. They have not, for whatever reason, wanted to do something like this. Now, I believe we will work something out with some other health providers, but it won't be like this. It'll look very different. They're going to work with you. They do want to work with you, but it won't be anything like this. So I'm not going to come here in 6 months with another healthcare provider and say they're interested in doing this. That's not going to happen. I don't have any evidence telling me that that's going to happen. It'll be working with you, absolutely, but it won't be quite like this. So I do know that there was one other one, Director Sober, question that you asked. I'm trying to remember it. But along the details of that, I guess I need to know from you if you want us to pursue this. We can spend a lot of time here doing nothing, or we can spend a lot of time doing something. I just need you to give me an indication, yes or no. You ultimately would have to agree any final contracts in any event, regardless of what we did. But your comfort level is what you want.
I think a lot of the questions that Director Soberg had will be answered going, if we approve to go forward with this.
I agree.
I think we should go forward and just get more details. It doesn't say that we're going to totally do it, but I'm just like I said before, schematically trying to figure out like how much of the building would they use, where would they be, who's gonna, I just like more details, I guess.
I think
And
that,
it's worth
I think we need
pursuing.
those.
You're going to use 25% of the building, which, and.
But like where, and I just want more details about.
My understanding of what's being asked of us is to
Commit.
basically, give
Commit.
Dr. Schmidt, go ahead and you got to go ahead, get the deal done and then bring it to us to rubber stamp it when
But
it's
the
done.
thing is if he finds out some of the questions that you've asked that we can't do it, we won't do it.
No, if it's we can't or we don't
Don't
want
want to. We don't want to.
Yeah.
Nicole, to answer your question, my side of that is, yes, we need a lot more questions
Right,
answered.
right.
Before we make a
That's-
commitment.
right, that's
So
my
I'm
point.
saying that's the
Yeah.
cart before the horse.
Yeah.
That, there's so much information we don't know, and a commitment, this sounds to me like a commitment. We don't, I know you said you've talked, and we've gotten your memos and stuff, you've talked to a lot of other health entities and things, but there's other entities besides the health entities. And, we didn't even have this building, when it was bought way later. And you're telling me you didn't have anything in the plans for administrative offices? Because when we had this big plan, you must have somewhere, and now you're saying there's nowhere else to go. Well, the school district didn't even buy it, and, when all those plans were made. So this has to be administrative. That's hard for me to understand, too. We don't know the age of this.
Well, wait a minute, can I answer that question?
Go ahead.
This building was purchased initially for another purpose, because this is where the football stadium was going to go. Then, because of the rock behind this building here, it was going to be way too expensive to demolish this building and put the football stadium here. That's why the football stadium got moved to where it is between the Laurentian. And so we own the building, and when we're looking at the costs for the admin, the building is here. We owned it at that time, and it was just simply cheaper to put the admin in here. It didn't make sense at the time for us to build new offices in the new high school because we had the building right here. So that's how the admin ended up in this building. It was just simply cheap.
But that's not accurate time-wise. The accuracy is, we had this building after we had plans for those schools, new schools, and you're telling me that we didn't have any plan for admin space in those new buildings?
The designs.
We should have, but we
The
didn't.
designs weren't even on paper.
Yes, they were. Anyhow, let's not argue that, but then the other.
The biggest thing here is we have a motion on the table.
And we're still in discussion.
And we're having a lot of discussion that's going way off parameter.
No, it's not. Mine is very pertinent. I still have another one about the cost and the 20 years. I understand this building needs a new roof. It needs a whole new HVAC system, whether that's heat and air conditioning. At our expense, we are going to maintain it for all those 20 years. What are those costs? We don't even know those costs.
I think, that's what we need to know.
We don't even know those things.
That 25% of the building, who's going to pay for they're paying for the electricity, they're paying for the gas, they're paying for the maintenance. How does that lease agreement look like over 20 years? Are there any outs? Is there any outs for them?
Well, and I highly doubt there would be because they're looking at investing a large sum of money into the facility for years.
I'm not asking for you to say, yes, we're going to do this for certain.
Okay.
I'm asking if you want to do things like Director Addy, talk to the legal, look at what that form would look like so you can see the details. Okay, here's what the contract would look like. Here's what the details would look like. I don't want to spend money on legal fees for you if you don't want to do this. But we also have to start looking at that if you're interested in taking a look at that.
But if they're going to drop a legal binding contract, we need to have our legal counsel look at it to see, okay, this.
We need to drop the contract. It's our property. You don't go to someone and.
Well, I know, but what are we going to get? What are we going to provide to them?
Yes.
My understanding.
All these questions that you're all proposing are great questions, but what Dr. Schmidt is asking, can he go forward
With discussions.
and talk to Orthopedic Associates? It said, consider proposal. It doesn't say that we're going to do it. It says, consider the proposal. The proposal is a is as big as this building, but there's nothing in it right now. So let's just
Consider proposal and accept proposal, or probably,
Yeah, I guess
vote
I'm,
on the proposal and get some,
okay,
where's the beef?
okay, let's vote on it.
And I have one more, we're still in discussion. How is this any different than, do we know if this is is this a viable project? We rejected a bunch of proposals for the old junior high and the manual training building because we said, oh, we don't know. Oh, is this viable and serious? And so, to me, it's the same.
I'll tell you this,
The question.
I know a number of kids who have been influenced by the athletic trainers that have come through our schools, influenced by them, and they're pursuing their educational, track, the athletic training, and, because of that. It's all about exposure, and healthcare, what I've heard, presentations indicate is that healthcare is one of the largest fields in this area. And so I feel like we need to continue discussions and see where it leads.
I'm calling for the question.
just to clarify, what are we voting on?
We're voting on considering the proposal by Orthopedic Associates so Dr. Schmidt can.
So we're agreeable to this. I guess that's my question.
One page here.
Consider the proposal or accepting of the proposal.
Premature to even consider it.
And we'll consider it, bring us.
One proposal we're looking at, we have been approached by a bank wanting to come into our school district, set up a student-run bank here. Are we gonna sit and argue and fight over every entity?
And kick the bucket down the road.
Let's get back.
That's the point.
I think what the question should be, what the question should be is that, do we approve Dr. Schmidt continuing discussions with orthopedic?
Consider the proposal and coming back with more information.
Yes.
Okay.
I would say
Yes.
consider.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
So we have
Premature.
6 ayes with Director Schoberg and Director Sorkin against. Thank you.
You can skip over
We can skip over
13.2.
13.2. Consider a donation request from the Lyric Center for the Arts, items from the Roosevelt Elementary for use at the Lyric Center.
Consider. What's the donation request? I mean, they're looking for some items out of the Roosevelt to go into their building?
Correct. Dr. Schmidt, they're looking at firebox.
Yeah, there's some fireboxes, there's some pictures that they're interested in that the Virginia Historical Society was not. If you walk into my office immediately to the left, there's an older drawing there they want that, for example. That's what they're asking for. They would use these in their center. They would not resell them or anything.
I make a motion, we reject it because first of all, these are things that we could probably use in our new schools. We got a lot of wall space. Why don't we're giving things away that we could and should use in our new school buildings. Second of all, Matt, you talked about just giving away rental space. Is that even legal? I'm not sure that we can just donate our property to entities. Third of all,
So we have a motion.
Okay.
We have a motion not to accept this. Is there a second? Is there a
I
second?
second.
We have a motion by Director Sorkin, second by.
Discussion, is this surplus stuff, Noel? Is this just,
There is a detailed on the agenda
Right here.
online. This is a oak coat rack, watercolor winter scene signed Wayne, 2 paintings. I guess I just want to know, I'd like to see what it is, and like you said, if we can utilize it in the new school. Canterbury Tales images are located in the basement storage room. Watercolor images, Venice print, and frames. I'm not against giving them to the Lyric Center, but I'd like to just have more information about them as
I
well.
mean, and if that's the case, we're taking stuff out of the Roosevelt, and next thing you know, we're taking stuff out of the Nell Sheen and the Gilbert School, and it's going in the new school. We're taking stuff out of the Franklin and the high school over there, and we're bringing it over here. I mean,
I think we should know what we have, though. I think we should make.
There's lots
maybe
of
we
stuff.
should see pictures or whatever.
Maybe
I
we
don't know.
should have a sale. Maybe we should have an auction and how did these people get kind of first crack in even knowing what we have? Did they have special privileges to come here and see what we had and then make a list of what they wanted? What about an auction or a sale and other people? And again, I'm not sure that we can just donate our property. Here's one thing, when it was just the Evelyn Ward, we found out, and it was called a ridiculous amendment, that we could not give pictures of students themselves to the families. It had to be a school whatchamacall, and I think this is akin to, can we just give things away that the school district have? And it was, our attorney said, no, you can't. It's for a whole group or a whole whatever, but you can't just give things to individuals or pay things to individuals. So first of all, I want to ask for the.
Dr. Schmidt, do you have something to
I
say?
want, don't be cutting me off. I would suggest we ask the same question of our attorneys about these kind of donations and the donations. I'm not against the Historical Society or the Lyric Center. I just think we need to do it properly and have everybody and all entities and people get the same choice. Even
I'm on board with you.
If you would like to donate something, we would then designate it as surplus property. Then you can do as you wish with it, as you designate that. The background for how this request came out, some individuals from the Virginia Historical Society walked around the building with Jeff Carey. They noted a number of items. That's why you got the request. Donated to Virginia Historical Society. Someone who was with them was with the Lyric Center, and then they noticed some items that the Virginia Historical Society did not identify. That's where the source of this request is coming from. And originally, it is true, we were planning on just putting all of this on sale so anybody could purchase it. However, these are the requests from these organizations that we're bringing forward to you.
And how do they get first crack and first choice and cherry picking and priority and preference? This is what
I'm about giving back to our community.
Yeah, me too. They want it, they're a historical society, they can have it, Mike.
Okay, so we have, and I'm going to say, if you vote for this, we will not be considering this request.
Correct.
Correct.
All those in favor of not adopting the request from the Lyric Center, say aye.
Aye.
So we have Schoberg, Sorkin, and all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
5-3, we approve, or 5-3, it dies. Now we need a motion to consider the donation.
I'll make that motion.
I'll support.
That's from Brandy Lotiger, second by
Addy.
Bill Addy. Is there, I don't think there's need for any more discussion. We've already discussed it.
My only other point would be, I would want to check with legal to make sure we can do this.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
So we have a 5-3. It is approved with Schoberg, Sorkin, and all in opposition. Very good. Meeting announcement. Regular meeting will be on January 24th. 14.2, we will be closing the meeting for legal recommendations. And when we reopen, all we will do is adjourn the meeting. So is there a motion?
Tim, you have to say what the purpose and what the legal authority we have to close.
We are closing the meeting because of a student violation, or student
Issue.
issue that we have to take action on. So we'll go into recess.
We have to vote to close the meeting?
I'd move to adjourn the regular meeting.
We don't adjourn.
To come back and adjourn.
We have to come back and.
Recess at 9:30. Come back, as I stated, we will do no business except if we decide we will take action. That was 14.3.
Correct.
We are in recess. Take 3 or 4 minutes to stretch and then
Ought to get a whole
Okay.
prepared for that.
The Rockridge School Board is second session at
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock. We have one item that we are going to take care of from the closed session, 14.3. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
We have a motion by Bill Addy.
Support.
Support by John Yuhan. And I should read this, Noel?
Not necessarily, huh?
You don't have to.
Don't have to?
Just refer to the number.
Resolution to adopt the findings and conclusions of a hearing officer to expel student RR/V1 21-22 for a period of 12 months. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by...
Resolution, roll call.
Yeah. Roll call vote. Brandy Lotiger,
Yes.
Bill Addy,
Yes.
Nicole Dahl,
Yes.
Polly Sorkin,
Yes.
Tom Tamero,
Yes.
John Yuhan,
Yes.
Matt Solberg,
Yes.
Tim Reardon, yes. Unanimous on this. And at this time, I will entertain a motion at 10:02 to adjourn our meeting.
Support.
Motion by Bill, support by Brandy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you.